Chapter 990. The group traversed through the mountains, but they did not see any greenery along the way. The sound of locusts flapping their wings was omnipresent. Coupled with the fear of the unknown ahead, it made them restless and uneasy. Arguments would erupt from time to time, or even swords would be thrown at one another. Liu Hong could not walk at the front anymore. He rode his horse to the front and back of the group, using his dignity as an innate master to intimidate everyone. They arrived before a narrow valley. Liu Hong suddenly stopped his horse and waved his hand for the group to stop. He said loudly, "Friend, where are you from up ahead? Don't sneak around. Come out and meet me." Using his innate true qi, his voice reverberated through the valley. "Haha, and I was wondering who it was. So it's the Iron Lion. Do you still recognize me?" A large man climbed up a huge rock and gazed at the group below. His face was sallow like he was ill, but his eyes shone brightly. He held a large bow in his hand. Many figures stood up on the two sides of the valley with a rustle, all holding bows and arrows. Huang Binghu. Liu Hong's eyes narrowed. Although he had become an innate master through a pile of spiritual fruits, he could tell that Huang Binghu had already reached the 7th layer, having split open his sea of qi. He had surpassed the cultivation of the masters of the Jianghu and become a true qi practitioner. He clasped his hands. "Manor Lord Huang, it really has been a while. I heard you've been traveling around, but I wonder when you've returned to the mountains and started doing business like this. I've made a fool of myself in front of School Master Liu. Diamonds run amok right now, and the mountains are no longer a paradise. All I can do is go to the Clear River Prefecture to make a living, but I don't have enough food. There's nothing I can do." Huang Binghu sighed. The locust plague mainly spread through populated areas. It would not reach the depths of the mountains or forests. The Drawn Rains village relied on hunting for a living. They did not rely on farming to survive, so they were relatively free in the beginning. However, in recent years, the diamonds lurking in the depths of the boundless mountains gradually expanded their range of activity. A few months ago, demonic beasts began intruding into the village. The tall wooden walls might have been able to stop soldiers, but they were unable to stop the demonic beasts that moved like the wind. In just a few days, people would lose their lives. The demonic beast basically treated the Drawn Rains village as a sheep pen, able to come and catch a few people and eat them at any time. Drawn Rains village had no choice but to invite Huang Binghu back. They had spent a great deal of effort to kill the demon beast, but nearly 100 people from Drawn Rains village had died. However, if it was a demon that had come, it was uncertain who had died. Huang Binghu had no choice but to move the entire village, but the Drawn Rains village did not have that much food in reserve, which was why this happened. Huang Binghu could casually kill a qi practitioner at the 1st layer of qi practitioner, but Liu Hong was a little troublesome. It was not that he was afraid of the Iron Fist, but that the old man had a good disciple, the current head of the agricultural family, Li Long sect leader Liu, take the Iron Fist disciples and leave first. "Although I don't want to do this, I can't just watch my children starve to death." The moment Huang Binghu said this, the team behind him went into a panic. Some of them loudly begged for Liu Hong's protection, while others scolded Huang Binghu. With a swoosh, an arrow was shot out of nowhere. The person who was cursing was hit and fell to the ground. The crowd was in an uproar. "Murder! What are you howling for? All of you shut up!" Liu Hong bellowed out furiously. With the prestige he had accumulated in Qingyang City over all these years, the group immediately quietened down. He did not pity the person who had been shot to death at all. How could a mighty qi practitioner be cursed just like that? Even 2nd or 3rd-rate figures of the Jianghu would kill someone with a blade. "Brother Huang, why don't we go to the Clear River Prefecture together? I'll deal with the matter of food. It'll be a little safer on the way too." Liu Hong thought about it. The disciples of the Iron Fist did not grow up from the ground. They had many connections with the wealthy clans behind them. If he allowed Huang Binghu to plunder them as he pleased, their morale would immediately disperse. However, if he stubbornly refused, Huang Binghu was no pushover either. If he made up his mind and decided to eliminate the source of trouble, no one would be able to stop him here. "Master, we didn't bring that much food with us either," Wang Lei said softly. Collect all the food and redistribute it according to the number of people. If you don't want to, then piss off, Liu Hong yelled. Thank you, old sect master Liu. Huang Binghu clasped his hands, and the hunters of the Drawn Reins village descended from the two sides of the valley. Then, he ordered, take out our stored food too and let old sect master Liu distribute it. The hunters handed over their dried meat and other food silently. All of them were expressionless, but they gave off a sense of ruthlessness that could erupt at any time. The painful experiences of the past few months had suppressed and twisted their personalities. Let alone stealing some food, they would even eat people without hesitation. Even the disciples of the Iron Fist who collected the food were cautious when they approached them, let alone the others. None of them were bold enough to break away from the group, handing over their stored food obediently. The group set off once again, passing through a few more mountains before finally arriving at a mountain pass. Vast plains appeared before them, but not a single stalk of rice was to be seen. There was only endless barren land. Perhaps because it was too barren, there were not many locusts flying about. The group advanced silently. The villages and towns along the way were all abandoned. There was no sign of human activity at all. Liu Hong took the lead. The group traveled day and night, hurrying towards the town of Sichuan. We'll rest for a while, Liu Hong ordered. It was noon right now, and the sun was blazing like fire. Everyone was drenched in sweat, utterly exhausted. They used this opportunity to rest. The town of Sichuan is already close. Once we get there, we'll be able to follow the river and reach the prefectural city of Clear River. There's no need to walk anymore. Wang Lei boosted their morale loudly. Looks like old sect master Liu has already prepared a boat. I wonder if it'll be enough. Huang Binghu probed. Even the largest boat could not fit so many people. It's all my disciples' arrangements. I don't know if it'll be enough. I'll probably have to squeeze. Liu Hong weighed his words. As long as there's a boat, squeezing is fine. Huang Binghu smiled. It was not like he would be the one being squeezed out. Right when he wanted to ask a few more questions, his expression suddenly changed. He picked up the great bow on his back, picked up an arrow, and narked it on the string. He looked around. What's wrong? Liu Hong asked. There's demon chi. Huang Binghu glanced around. Suddenly, he saw a green figure emerge from the earth from the corner of his eye, shooting into the body of a burly man. The burly man let out a miserable shriek, rolling around on the ground. He immediately bled to death from his facial orifices. Huang Binghu's fingers loosened, and the arrow shot through the air, entering the corpse of the burly man and exploding violently. Within the rain of flesh and blood, the green figure shot up again. Blood blossomed from the head of an Iron Fist disciple, and a hole appeared. He collapsed before he could even let out a shriek. A Kai demon. Only now did Huang Binghu see the green figure's true appearance. It was a locust larva. It was emerald green and only the size of a pinky. It could not fly, so it was commonly known as a Kai bug. However, the demon chi gathered by this Kai bug was extremely startling, reaching the level of diamonds. Who knew how many people it had eaten? He thought, this place is so barren that even ordinary locusts can't survive here. How can there be a Kai demon here? It doesn't seem like a chance encounter, but more like it's here to kill us. Before Liu Hong could even see the appearance of the Kai demon clearly, miserable shrieks rang out from the crowd. In the end, almost everyone was letting out horrifying screams, as if their minds were being controlled by an invisible monster. Even he felt a little flustered, and only after touching the talismans in his bosom did he manage to calm himself down. He asked Huang Binghu beside him, "Brother Huang, what do we do?" Huang Binghu leaped over, his body reaching the highest point. His pupils narrowed into two as he stared at the location of the demon chi. Over a dozen arrows rained down like a torrential rain, turning into balls of exploding flames and blasting a corpse into smithereens. Liu Hong asked, "How is it? Did you kill it?" It burrowed back into the earth. Perhaps it was injured, perhaps it wasn't. Huang Binghu shook his head, his expression abnormally solemn. That Kai demon seemed to have seen through his thoughts, burrowing back into the earth at the first moment instead of shooting at the next victim. Otherwise, There really would have been a chance to kill it. Furthermore, it maintained such a tiny body size, as if it was specifically targeting him. Then what do we do? There's nothing we can do, Huang Binghu said. No matter how good his archery was, it was impossible for him to pierce through the earth and hit that Kai demon. Liu Hong's expression changed. A demonic beast hiding in the earth, ready to pounce at any moment, was practically a nightmare. Looks like we don't have to worry about not having enough boats. Huang Binghu made a joke, but even he himself could not laugh. In terms of strength, that Kai demon was at most equivalent to a human at the 4th or 5th layer of Qi practitioner. It could only be considered a demonic beast, not a demon. However, he did not have the slightest confidence that he could defeat it, because behind this Kai demon was a great demon king that had wreaked havoc in the entire Green Province. Amidst its madness, there was also a deep sense of cunning and prudence. Be it in terms of combat skills or experience, it was not something an ordinary demonic beast could compare to. At most, he could serve as a deterrent, allowing the Kai demon to feast on the regular people in the distance. Let's go. Liu Hong made up his mind as well, passing down the order. Before he had even finished speaking, another howl rang out. A person at the very end of the group collapsed on the ground. Green bulges protruded from beneath his skin, but it did not directly kill him. It was as if it was purposefully increasing his pain. The howl was extremely tragic, enough to make people's scalps tingle. The crowd immediately surged forward like a ruckus. Twisted cries filled the air, filled with fear and regret. They regretted leaving Qingyang City in such a hurry, but they had no idea that Qingyang City had already become a slaughterhouse for locusts right now, rapidly transforming into demonic beasts. Huang Binghu's bow was narked as well, but after some thought, he lowered his bow again. He gathered the hunters of the Drawn Reins village and sped up towards the lower river village. He could continue to stop the Kai demon from eating, but he would definitely be unable to endure it first. As a result, he was better off letting the Kai demon eat a little longer, which would buy him some time. However, he also understood that this was just quenching his thirst with poison, as the Kai demon's strength would increase with every person it ate. If it completely turned into an adult insect, even he would be in danger of being eaten. Old brother Liu, I hope that school leader Li has arranged for reinforcements at the ferry crossing, or we're all going to lose our lives to the mouths of the insect. It's just death. Liu Hong's face darkened with rage. Sect Master Liu, Manor Lord Huang, save me. Liu Hong looked back and saw a group of people fighting over Yi Dachuan's carriage. As a result, he turned his horse around and smashed ahead with a punch. All of you piss off. As they fled, the group split into two. Those without horses and who did not practice martial arts were left behind, becoming food for the Kai demon. Their howls gradually faded away, completely swallowed up by the sandstorm. They traveled like this until dusk. Even the fine horse Liu Hong sat on began foaming at the mouth. Even though the disciples of the Iron Fist sect and the hunters of the Drawn Reins village were skilled in martial arts, they were utterly exhausted. They could not help but stop to rest and eat something. Thank you, old hero Liu. Once we reach Clear River City, I'll definitely reward you handsomely. If I had known this earlier, I wouldn't have left Qingyang City. No, I shouldn't have returned to Qingyang City. When Jiaping City was destroyed back then, I should have obediently retired to the prefectural city. Only then did Yi Dachuan get off the carriage in time to thank him. His chubby face was pale, completely drained of blood. In the past, when Jiaping City was destroyed by the rock demon, he had nowhere to go as the district magistrate, and he was deeply afraid of the strength of the diamonds. As a result, he got his sister to whisper to the prefectural magistrate of Clear River, Liu Changqing, and he was transferred back to Qingyang City as the district magistrate. He never thought he would still be unable to escape in the end. There's no need to be so polite, sir. Liu Hong nodded slightly. Wang Lei patted his chest. As long as I still have a breath left, I'll definitely make it to Clear River City safely, sir. Yi Dachuan's sister was the beloved concubine of the prefectural magistrate of Clear River, Liu Changqing. Although she was old and frail now, she had given birth to a son and a daughter for Liu Changqing, so her status had instead become even more stable. Yi Dachuan had mentioned this matter for many years. Wang Lei could not forget it even if he wanted to. He knew his relationship with Li Long was not exactly harmonious, so it was good to have an additional path. Thank you, Sect Master Wang. Yi Dachuan thanked WNG Lei again, but he didn't really trust WNG Lei's guarantee. Sect Master WNG already had a hard time protecting himself when the leprechaun attacked, let alone protecting Yi Dachuan. Yi Dachuan suddenly thought of someone. Sigh, if Qingshan was here, he wouldn't be in such a difficult situation. Sir Yi, you're overthinking it. Do you still treat him as your constable? Huang Binghu smiled. If Li Qingshan were here, a measly demon would be nothing. I heard from Li Long that he's the White Hawk commander of the South Sea Commandery of the Mist Province right now. He occupies a place called Savage Mountain, and is known as the King of Savages. Even the King of Southern Yu shows some respect when he sees him, said Liu Hong. Really? Huang Binghu was filled with disbelief. Only after embarking on the path of cultivation did he truly understand just how lofty an existence the lord of a province was. I found that rather hard to believe, but that disciple of mine would never lie. I've even punched him several dozen times in the past. Time sure passes quickly. Yi Dachuan sighed. Are you talking about Li Qingshan? A shrill voice drifted over with the wind. Who else could it be? Yi Dachuan said, only to see Huang Binghu's expression change drastically. Liu Hong also raised his fist, gazing at the barren slope nearby cautiously. By now, the sun had already sunk below the horizon. Only the west was dyed red, and a few cold stars lit up in the sky. On the barren slope, a withered tree extended its branches like a huge, withered hand, as if it wanted to grab a star. A tiny caterpillar lay on the branch of the withered tree. The shrill voice originated from its mouth. We've actually only noticed it when we're so close. The situation doesn't look good. Huang Binghu sharply noticed that a smear of grayish-yellow had appeared on the caterpillar. It was rapidly transforming into an adult. Once it completely transformed, it would be the end of everyone. Chapter 991. A great demon king that had wreaked havoc in the Green Province and eaten countless people was actually connected to Li Qingshan. Liu Hong and Huang Binghu glanced at one another. They were both in disbelief. We've all been old friends of Qingshan for several decades. You should be thanking him for sparing our lives. Yi Dachuan said loudly. Of course. A friend of a friend is a friend. If you had told me earlier, why would I want to eat you? The monster yarrow flapped its wings and flew off the branch, disappearing into the desolate slope. Fantastic. Yi Dachuan sat on the ground, while the others all let out sighs of relief. Their faces were filled with joy from escaping death. Brother Huang, what do you think? Liu Hong frowned. He felt like the monster yarrow had left far too easily. That's hard to say. We're done resting, so let's hurry up. Huang Binghu did not want to entrust the lives of the entire village to the loyalty of a demon. I think so too. Liu Hong nodded before giving the order to set off. Sect Master Liu, since the diamonds have already retreated, why are you in such a hurry? Even the horses can't take it if you keep going like this. Some people were unwilling to leave. After running for an entire afternoon, even riding a horse left them exhausted. As soon as they relaxed, they felt like the ground of the summer night was as comfortable as a soft bed. If you want to stay, then stay. Liu Hong tossed that down coldly and mounted his horse. He used true qi to regulate the horse's breathing along the way, so the horse retained some vigor. Now, it raised its hooves and galloped off into the distance. Everyone could only prop themselves up and follow him. Some people simply did not want to move anymore or could not move anymore after the threat of death was gone, so they stayed behind. They considered whether they should return to Qingyang City or not. On the other hand, the hunters of the Drawn Reins village traversed the mountains all year round. Coupled with the care of a seventh-layer qi practitioner like Huang Binghu, they managed to endure it with some difficulty. Old Manor Lord, I really can't move anymore. You should go. A 12 or 13-year-old young man said to Huang Binghu. He had only practiced martial arts for a short period of time, so his inner force was still extremely weak. Although he had tempered his muscles and bones, he could not endure such a rapid march. Cut the nonsense. Huang Binghu stretched out his hand and patted the youth's back. A wave of true qi flowed in, and the youth's spirit was immediately lifted. Thank you, Villa Master. Night fell, and the wilderness was dotted with stars. The team moved forward with difficulty, and from time to time, some people fell behind. They stopped a few more times in the middle, but the demon wolf did not chase after them again. It seemed like it really wanted to let them live. Brother Huang, do you want to slow down? Liu Hong asked. Many of the disciples of Iron Fist couldn't keep up. He didn't have enough innate qi to take care of them. Let's continue walking. Something doesn't feel right. Huang Binghu turned around and stared into the darkness. The ominous feeling in his heart grew stronger and stronger. More than 10 miles away, a broken carriage had fallen to the side of the road. A horse was foaming at the mouth and dying. 2 people were arguing. The woman criticized the man loudly. I told you we shouldn't have left Qingyang City. Now that we've ended up like this, what do you think we should do? What should we do? What should I do? You only know how to ask. The man was very irritable as well. They did not have enough food on hand to return to Qingyang City at all. Even if they killed the horse for its meat, it would rot very quickly in a summer like this. If they continued towards the village of Lower River, Liu Hong and the others would have probably gone down the river long ago by the time they arrived. Why would they wait for them? I must have been blind to marry a piece of trash like you. Even trash has his uses. A shrill voice spoke up for the man. The man felt like the voice was right next to his ear. Using the faint moonlight, the woman saw a tiny demon wolf on the man's shoulder. It opened its mouth and was about to shriek. The demon wolf flapped its wings gently and produced a gust of cold wind. The woman's shriek came to a halt, and a bloody gash appeared on her neck. Her head rolled off. Spare me. I'm also Li Qingshan's friend. Don't kill me, the man said with a trembling voice. His lower body felt wet and hot. All right, I know you're not, so I'll give you a quick death. The demon Meng's body rapidly grew to the size of a horse carriage, its compound eyes flashed with green light, its ferocious mouth split into a few pieces, swallowing half of the man's body in one bite and chewing. So delicious. So delicious. It's even more delicious than demon folk no matter how I eat it. As it swallowed mouthful after mouthful, it gradually transformed from a demon wolf to a locust. In Qingyang City, the sound of the huge locust flapping its wings rang through the entire city. Terrifying shadows patrolled every street and alleyway, constantly hunting for food. Its demon qi grew steadily. When it reached midnight, the huge locust reluctantly abandoned all its food. It sealed up the 2 city gates first before flapping its wings and flying towards the village of Lower River. When it heard the name Li Qingshan, it made up its mind. All of these people had to die. By dawn, the group had arrived at the village of Lower River. The town that had once prospered because of the ferry had now been completely abandoned as well. Ruins littered the place. We're finally here. Wang Lei exhaled deeply and looked around. Only a 10th or 20 of the people who had left Qingyang City with him remained. His heart was rather heavy. Don't stop. The ferry is right up ahead. Once you board the ship, you'll be safe. Liu Hong boosted their morale loudly. A strange hum rang out from afar. A yellow speck rapidly drew closer and larger. A huge locust with surging demon qi flew over. God damn it. Let's go. Huang Binghu cursed. He leapt onto a restaurant on the side of the road and shot an arrow. The flying locust dodged the arrow with a slight tilt. It said hoarsely, "My good friends, don't run. Let me have a taste of your flesh and blood." Twang, twang, twang. The bowstring thrummed as Huang Binghu shot arrow after arrow, unleashing his ultimate technique of rapid fire. Too slow. Too slow. The flying locust's colossal body turned into arcs, dodging every single arrow gracefully. It did not slow down at all. Even if it could not dodge, it would knock the arrows aside with a gentle sweep of its front foot. Huang Binghu's face sank. He had been on the move for an entire night, constantly channeling true qi to his clansmen. His condition was very horrible as well. He was not the opponent of this full-fed locust demon at all. If he wanted to emerge victorious, he had to take the risk. A fierce gust of wind blew over. Its vicious mouth opened, biting towards his head. A gleam of light flashed through Huang Binghu's eyes. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for. He immediately drew his bow like a crescent moon. Rings of true qi coiled around the arrow, ready to shoot. Behind you. There's another one. Liu Hong's voice twisted as he warned loudly. All of Huang Binghu's has stood on end. Demon qi assaulted him from behind, but it was already too late for him to dodge. He felt a stabbing pain from his back, and a flying locust the size of a thumb pierced through his chest. There were still a few smears of emerald green on its body. It was the monster that had pursued them. There are actually two of them. My life is over. However, the giant flying locust in front of him did not bite him. Instead, it turned around and swept past him. Blood splattered everywhere, and a severed arm flew high into the air. Don't be hasty, a good friend should be tasted slowly. With a bang, Huang Binghu fell from the roof. He saw the giant flying locust pouncing towards the crowd again. Its buzzing wings were like blades. More than 10 people were running on the street when they were suddenly torn apart. Among them were hunters from the Drawn Reins village, as well as disciples of Iron Fist. It's over. Huang Binghu closed his eyes in despair. Against such an enemy, even if there was only one, it would be extremely difficult to win, let alone two. The flying locust pounced over, and Liu Hong knew that there was no way to escape. He pushed Wang Lei, who was beside him, away, and straightened his body. He slapped a Vajra strength talisman on his body, and waves of golden light surged from his body, transforming into the illusion of a Vajra. With a sudden roar, he punched out with both his fists, using the move Iron Horse splitting the manair towards the flying locust. With a loud bang, the small flying locust that the monster had transformed into, like a hidden weapon, fiercely smashed into Liu Hong's chest. The illusion of a Vajra immediately caved in, and the golden light flickered and dimmed. Liu Hong's feet left the ground, and he flew backwards. Meanwhile, the giant flying locust used its front legs to easily pierce through Liu Hong's shoulder, crippling all of his ability to resist. The two flying locusts, one big and one small, cooperated flawlessly. It could no longer be described with the word tacit understanding. Under the control of a great demon king, even if one's strength was above theirs, they might not necessarily be able to win. Just like how it dealt with Huang Binghu, the flying locust did not immediately kill Liu Hong. The small flying locust continued to slaughter the fleeing mortals, while the giant flying locust flapped its wings and flew high into the sky, its compound eyes searching everywhere. Where's the other good friend? Yi Dachuan drove the carriage down to the ferry, and from time to time, he would look back. When he saw the fate of Huang Binghu and Liu Hong, he was so scared that his soul left his body. He desperately waved his whip. Go! Go! Found him. The flying locust flapped its wings, creating a gust of wind. It suddenly appeared beside Yi Dachuan and moved alongside the carriage. Its compound eyes stared at him and said, "Good friend, I still haven't thanked you properly." "No. No need." Yi Dachuan stammered. "That's not up to you." The flying locust laughed sinisterly. Just as it was about to capture Yi Dachuan and torture him together with Huang Binghu and Liu Hong, a sword qi suddenly whistled over. The flying locust hurriedly dodged, but one of its antennae was still cut off. It crashed head first into a residential building by the side of the road, causing it to collapse with a loud bang, smoke and dust flying everywhere. Yi Dachuan saw a red-clothed man holding a large sword lightly step on the shaft of the carriage, and in a flash, he swung his sword towards the collapsed residential building. With a whoosh, the small flying locust shot towards the red-clothed man's head. The red-clothed man lowered his sword and slashed to the side, forcing the small flying locust to retreat. With a loud bang, the broken bricks and tiles flew everywhere. The giant flying locust suddenly pounced out, its sharp mouth biting towards the red-clothed man. The man struck out with his palm. He wore a fiery red glove on the hand that did not hold the sword, and with a flash of red runes, it immediately transformed into a giant burning palm of flames, slapping the flying locust away. Scarlet Eagle Guard. 10th layer Qi practitioner. Huang Binghu was overjoyed. He leapt up from the ground, picked up his severed arm, and held it in his mouth. Holding a long arrow that flickered with spiritual light, he charged forward. The Scarlet Eagle Guard had already reached the peak of Qi practitioners. He had opened all the meridians in his body, and with a palm and a sword, he was able to suppress the 2 flying locust, one large and one small. With Huang Binghu watching from the side, the flying locust was pushed back again and again, finally fleeing in 2 different directions. Keek, another good friend, come and kill me. The Scarlet Eagle Guard wanted to pursue, but when he saw the corpses all over the ground, he stopped. No matter which side he chose to pursue, he might be able to succeed in the end, but everyone here would have to die with him. Thank you, fellow Daoist, for saving me, Huang Binghu said. Wang Lei also came forward to express his thanks while supporting Liu Hong. Chapter 992. Don't tell me you're the former lord of the Proud Sword Manor. I've heard a lot about you. Liu Hong was surprised. In the past, the Proud Sword Manor possessed some renown in the Jianghu, but it was rumored that the lord had vanished afterwards, and the Proud Sword Manor declined. He never thought it would become such a powerful Qi practitioner. That was a very long time ago. I never thought someone would still remember it. Yu Shuquang laughed aloud as his full beard trembled. Please wait a moment. We can't leave these corpses for that wretched demon. He waved his right hand and true Qi surged, gathering the corpses into a pile. They were still alive just a moment ago, yet they had been reduced to such a state. The bloody sight made Liu Hong feel rather nauseous. A ball of fire flew out from Yu Shuquang's hand and landed on the pile of corpses. They were reduced to ashes in the blink of an eye. Wang Lei suddenly burst into tears. As it turned out, he had brought his entire family with him when he came to the Clear River Prefecture. Originally, he had taken care of his family, and they had managed to make it here after so much difficulty. In the end, they all died to the attacks of the locusts. If Liu Hong had not pushed him away, he would have been a dead man too. Liu Hong let out a long sigh. He could not help but tear up too. Yu Shuquang had already grown accustomed to this. Ever since the locust plague, who knew how many people had died to the insects? It was already quite rare for their corpses to be left behind for cremation. This place has already been reduced to a wasteland since a year ago. Even regular locusts are rare, yet 2 locusts' diamonds have actually appeared. How strange. The wretched demon seems to recognize Li Qingshan. Huang Binghu hesitated before describing how he had conversed with the Jiyu demon. Li Qingshan. Yu Shuquang was taken aback. His path of cultivation had a lot to do with Li Qingshan. He said seriously, I know a thing or two about this. The Soaring Locust King was originally suppressed in the Demon Suppression Hall of the Chan Monastery of Deva Nga. Afterwards, it bewitched an eminent monk and escaped somehow. I've never heard that it's connected to Li Qingshan. Based on the current situation, I'm afraid it's not gratitude, but enmity. This is troublesome. Huang Binghu's expression darkened. Based on the speed at which the locust demon was growing, it was more than enough to deal with them. Now that it had summoned another locust demon, it was clear that it was determined to capture them. Moreover, it was not in a hurry to kill them. Instead, it wanted to keep them alive to slowly torture them. No matter how he looked at it, the locust demon's hatred for them ran deep. It did not feel good to be targeted by a demon king. All right, let's get on the boat first. Yu Shuquang led the lucky survivors to the ferry crossing. Sure enough, there was a dragon ship waiting there. It could accommodate 200 or 300 people, but less than a tenth of the people had boarded right now. As the sun rose in the east, the dragon boat set sail and went downstream. Yu Shuquang leaned on his sword as he stood on the deck. His scarlet clothes ruffled in the wind as the scenery on the 2 banks rapidly receded. Fellow Daoist Yu, is there anyone else to help? Huang Binghu walked out of the cabin, his severed arm already reattached. Isn't having me enough? Yu Shuquang laughed. That's not what I meant, Huang Binghu said in a hurry. I'm just joking. There's no need to be so nervous. I've also been considering whether I should ask for reinforcements or not. For the sake of the locust plague right now, no cultivator can afford to be idle. The higher one's cultivation is, the more trouble there will be. Otherwise, school leader Li would not have sent me here. He would have come personally. I understand that. However, If the soaring Locust King sends even more powerful locusts, then the entire ship will be in danger of dying. Yu Shuquang nodded. He touched the scarlet bronze tablet on his waist and secretly made up his mind. Is your arm fine? It's fine now, but I won't be able to use a bow for a very long time. Hopefully, it's not for the rest of my life. When we get to the prefectural city, we can ask a disciple of the School of Medicine to take a look. There won't be any residual effect. The boat moved like the wind, covering a great distance in a single day. When they passed by Jiaping City, Yi Dachuan came out to take a look before returning to the cabin. When the moon rose into the sky, the fragrance of flowers drifted over with the wind. Yu Shuquang's face lit up. He clasped his hands. Greetings, Commander Hua. Dispense with the formalities. A beautiful figure landed gracefully on the front of the boat. She asked gently, You said the soaring Locust King is attacking you because you know Li Qingshan? Yes. Yu Shuquang also found this reason to be rather forced, nor did he expect Commander Hua to rush over immediately. In the cabin, Huang Binghu and Liu Hong had been tense the entire time. They immediately rushed over when they heard the disturbance. All they saw was Yu Shuquang reporting to a woman politely. The faint fragrance of flowers lingered in the air. Even the wind from the river failed to disperse it. The woman's facial features were picturesque, her figure graceful, and her bearing elegant. She seemed like a flower fairy that had descended, but she possessed a natural sense of dignity. She wore the uniform of a Scarlet Hawk commander. The woman glanced past them. Huang Binghu and Liu Hong both lowered their heads and bowed. They were both relieved, feeling like their lives were finally secured. She asked, You're both from Qingyang City. Do you know Li Qingshan? Liu Hong and Huang Binghu both mentioned their connections with Li Qingshan. Then what a coincidence today. The woman smiled. She was extremely beautiful. Suddenly, she cast her gaze towards the depths of the night sky, and a golden flower bloomed between her fingers. Suddenly, it shot out a thin, golden streak of light, disappearing in a flash. A locust turned into the size of a regular locust and flew through the air, tailing behind the boat from afar. They were simply too far away, such that even Yu Shuquang failed to discover them. However, it was exactly because of this that he only focused on the tiny boat that he overlooked Commander Hua's arrival. Suddenly, there was a flash of golden light. Before he could even respond, he was pierced, falling out of the sky. Only then did Yu Shuquang and the others realize that they had been tailed the entire time. They all felt lingering fear. Fortunately, they had not called for reinforcements earlier, or they really would have died a horrible death if the even stronger locust attacked. Now, we'll see just how deep the soaring Locust King's hatred runs. Commander Hua said. Although the soaring Locust King had many clones, only a few could threaten her, and she was constantly being attacked from all sides. It was not necessarily necessary for her to muster such a large force out of hatred. As the river flowed, her emotions fluctuated slightly. She gazed at the bright moon and thought, Big Brother Li, are you all right? They did not come across any more danger during the rest of the journey. The boat approached Clear River City smoothly. Everyone arrived on the deck. The city was brightly lit under the night sky, reflected in the water of the Clear River. The hustle and bustle carried over with the night wind, displaying a long-awaited liveliness. Finally, it was no longer a desolate sight, which roused everyone's spirits. Before Yu Shuquang and the others could celebrate, Commander Hua suddenly looked back. All they saw was a black cloud rising up from the horizon. It was a cloud composed of millions of locusts. There were countless clones of the soaring Locust King with demon chi as well. They lunged towards the boat and Clear River City with an aura that could devour everything. This was the true plague of locusts. Before this devastating disaster, Yu Shuquang and the others all changed in shock. Alarm bells rang out in the prefectural city of Clear River, ringing in everyone's heart. What heavy demon chi up ahead? Chapter 993. After Li Qingshan arrived in the Green Province, he did not rush to the Clear River Prefecture immediately. Instead, he searched for Yu Xin's whereabouts first. He planned on persuading her to return to the south. He even specially got Little and to divine for this. When he found Yu Xin after quite a bit of effort, she was currently strolling through a desolate village alone, her hands behind her back in thought. She completely ignored Li Qingshan, who descended from above. "Hey, what are you doing here?" Only when Li Qingshan called out to her did she turn around. "What's it got to do with you? Why aren't you cultivating properly in the south? Why have you returned to the Green Province?" Li Qingshan asked. "I've already told you. What's it got to do with you? Don't tell me you can't bear to part with me." Li Qingshan sniggered and walked over. "I knew it. Someone's delusional again." Yu Xin shook her head helplessly. "Then I don't understand. The Green Province isn't a good place right now, let alone your dwelling in the Chain Mountains. It can't be compared to the myriad poison cult either. It's greatly detrimental to cultivation. I'd advise you to return to the Mist Province." Li Qingshan cut right to the chase. "Then why do you want to return to the Green Province?" Yu Xin answered with a question. "Don't you know? There's obviously some unresolved grievances. It's the same for me. My master is still in the Clear River Prefecture." Yu Xin thought of the taciturn, dark-skinned old man. If it were not for him, she would have died in the jungle of the Mist Province a long time ago. Although they did not seem close to outsiders, it would not be an exaggeration to describe them as father and daughter. After several decades of tireless guidance, the two words Yu Xin were the greatest hope he had for her. However, she was unable to let go of her hatred, which was why she insisted on heading south to the Mist Province. However, the outcome was not too bad. After settling this grievance, it was time for her to return the favor. As a result, she returned to the Green Province resolutely. As for whether it was because of Li Qingshan, she knew very well herself. That dark-skinned old man. Li Qingshan was stunned. He was glared at by Yu Xin. He smiled and said, "Senior Hua Ci. Sure enough, I was overthinking things. I'm relieved. You can rest assured for the rest of your life," Yu Xin said. "Then why aren't you returning to the Clear River Prefecture? Why are you wandering around here?" Li Qingshan then asked. "I'm thinking about how to deal with this locust plague." "What can you do about that?" "That's the Soaring Locust King, one of the 72 demon kings from a few thousand years ago. Even I wouldn't dare say that I can deal with him. The Soaring Locust King is only the source of the locust plague. Even if you kill him now, the plague will continue for a long time." "Really?" Li Qingshan was unconcerned. As long as he killed the Soaring Locust King, all that remained were regular locusts. What threat would they pose? "Look." Yu Xin waved her hand, and a strip of soil flew out from the soil. She tossed it to Li Qingshan casually. "This is a locust egg. There are several dozen eggs in there, and there are 2,000 or 3,000 eggs like this in the small area beneath my feet." Li Qingshan crushed the egg in his hand and did some calculations inside. He could not help but be surprised. 100,000 locusts had actually hatched in such a small area. Across the entire Green Province, that would be an astronomical figure. Along the way, I've seen situations like this everywhere. This is probably all part of the Soaring Locust King's plan. All he needs to do is hide and not be found, and the plague of locusts will continue. All the cultivators of the Green Province can do is run around and put out fires everywhere. They'll definitely be ambushed by the Soaring Locust King's clones. And if they ignore it, the number of mortals will rapidly decline, and the entire cultivation community of the Green Province will decline. No wonder he was suppressed under the Demon Suppression Hall. Li Qingshan shook his head. This was practically a super-terrorist. To be able to fight against the entire cultivation community of the Green Province alone. If his methods were not so insane, he would have to admire this Soaring Locust King. "Even though I can't do anything to the Soaring Locust King, I can deal with regular locusts or even weaker clones. Without these claws, this plague of locusts can be stopped." Yu Xin's eyes shone with confidence. "Or the plague?" Li Qingshan guessed immediately. "That's right." Yu Xin walked as she collected the eggs. She carefully selected them, and no one knew what her criteria were. "Locusts can get sick." Li Qingshan caught up with her. "Which living thing doesn't get sick? Cultivators don't get sick. All harmful conditions are diseases." It's just that you don't realize it. If you're not careful during cultivation, not only will you not be able to prolong your life, you'll go crazy and die suddenly. It's worse than any disease. Yushin tapped Li Qingshan's chest lightly. Compared to Yushin's demon, it's a disease of the heart. If you put it that way, it makes sense. Li Qingshan grabbed her hand. It was as warm as jade. Otherwise, what kind of diseases do you think the imperial physicians in the imperial hospital treat? Flu, fever, infertility? Well, infertility still needs to be treated. After all, it's difficult for cultivators to have children. In short, they treat cultivators who won't get sick. Yushin held his hand and walked slowly. All right, now you want to cure the soaring locust king's disease and save the entire Green Province, right? At least you still have some brains. Yushin complimented. You're a mutant, but you came all the way to Green Province. You don't even care about yourself. You only care about saving the lives of humans. What kind of mental illness is this? Li Qingshan laughed. Do you understand the benevolence of doctors? Nope. What kind of reward do you think the King of Chu will give me if I manage to research this plague? Yushin smiled resplendently, revealing her neat, white teeth. I don't think there's a lack of benefits. Li Qingshan laughed. He couldn't help but admire her intelligence. Then you better hurry up. Don't let others get ahead of you. Normal students of the School of Medicine won't waste their time on this. Yushin wasn't worried at all. The foundation of the School of Medicine was to cure diseases, not to create plagues. Even the plague ghost was fundamentally a method of treatment. Killing and injuring enemies was secondary. They wouldn't specialize in creating plagues at all. Although the effects of plagues were terrifying, they were actually very useless. Yushin wouldn't have spent so much time and energy on this if she didn't have a deep grudge against them. In a head-on battle, anything was better than using plagues. Moreover, after decades of research and the help of a great cultivator, she was only able to create a decent plague after she passed the second heavenly tribulation. Moreover, it could only be used against enemies at the level of Qi practitioners. Chapter 994. If there's anything you need help with, feel free to ask. Li Qingshan patted his chest before adding, This isn't for you. I have grievances with the soaring Locust King. When I return to the Green Province this time, if I get the chance, I'll finish him off as well. Stay away from me, Yushin said. I'm not joking, Li Qingshan said. I'm not joking. Don't you have grievances with the soaring Locust King? If he sees this. Yushin raised Li Qingshan's hand and gestured, who knows what accidents might happen. All right then. Li Qingshan let go of Yushin's hand. With her cultivation method and cultivation, she basically would not be in any danger as long as the soaring Locust King's main body did not take action. He passed a jade tablet to her. If you encounter any danger, I'll be there as soon as I'm summoned. I hope you finish your pesticide soon. Li Qingshan clasped his hands and bade farewell, but he felt rather reluctant inside. As he gazed at her face, he suddenly thought of how she was completely naked in the gloomy jungle of the Mist Province. He shook his head and dismissed this thought. He hugged her gently, but the sensation of contact was as hard as jade. He smiled. You sure aren't giving me any face. All right, you can take your time with your research. I'm leaving. Li Qingshan took off, returning to Little and the little phoenix's side who waited in the distance. Yushin secretly let out a sigh of relief before curling her lips. Pesticide? That's a nice name. Li Qingshan and Little arrived in the Chain Mountains. Looking out, barren mountains rose and fell. Only the relatively colder, high mountains remained verdant. Thinking back to the sights they had seen along the way, the locust plague seemed even more terrifying than the demon plague of the Mist Province. Father, it's bare here. What's there to play with? After traveling for over 100,000 kilometers, the little phoenix had had his fill of flying. He was in a hurry to find something interesting to do. There's nothing fun here, but this is your dad's house. Li Qingshan and Little exchanged glances. Warmth filled their eyes. This was the first place they had settled down after leaving the crouching ox village. This mountain range? Too ordinary. The little phoenix had witnessed the wondrous sight of Fire Melt Mountain and the majestic scenery of Towering City, so his standards were already extremely high. Even if the U Mountains had not been affected by the locust plague, they were not much better than regular mountain ranges. Not this mountain range, but the one over there. Li Qingshan flew and landed on a protruding cliff halfway up a lonely peak. He stretched out his hand and gently brushed the rock wall. The dust scattered, revealing the 3 words Qing Xiao's home. Opening the mountain door, little Phoenix rushed into the cave dwelling and quickly flew 1 round. The light emitted from him lit up the dark mountainside as he cried out, "Dad, your home is so small." Small? The place I lived in the past wasn't even 1,000th the size of this place. Just how much hardship did I have to go through to obtain a proper dwelling? I haven't taught you anything after coming out for so long, so you better properly experience this place first, just in case you don't know how fortunate you are, Li Qingshan said in exasperation. The little phoenix's luck was just too good. Not only did he possess the powerful bloodline of the phoenix, but he also possessed the strength of a demon commander the moment he was born. He was taken care of by the divine Wutong tree on Fire Melt Mountain, and he had Li Qingshan's support when he came out. His path of life had basically been smooth without any setbacks at all. If this continued, it would not be a good thing. He did not want to change his name to Tianyi or something in the future. Please don't, Dad. Isn't this even worse than Fire Melt Mountain? The little phoenix lunged over and begged. As long as you defeat this prayer bead, I'll let you out. Otherwise. Little and picked up a skull prayer bead. The little phoenix shook his head forcefully. He had been plucked quite a few more times along the way, so he completely understood one thing. No matter how gentle and kind this woman had become, she was still terrifying deep down. Do you know why I've come to the Green Province? Li Qingshan asked sternly. To slay a dragon, the little phoenix said immediately. You haven't seen the Dragon King of the Sea, but you've seen the Banyan Tree King. They're the equally renowned demon kings of the 10 directions. I remember you said you wanted to help me, Li Qingshan said sternly. Why yes. The little phoenix hesitated. He had personally witnessed the Banyan Tree King's strength. If he faced an opponent like that, he would not be able to help at all. Or are you just saying that? No, I have to work hard to become stronger. Then let me have a look. Li Qingshan nodded in satisfaction. A child would always be a child. It's just a prayer bead. Come. The little phoenix said to little Anne, brimming with fighting spirit. With a flick of little Anne's finger, a skull prayer bead turned into a skeletal demon in midair and knocked the little phoenix away. Although the skull prayer beads had been severely damaged in the 3 heavenly tribulations, with more than half of them directly shattered and annihilated, the remaining prayer beads had a qualitative increase in strength. If there were enough resources to repair them, each of them would have the strength of a demon king. The prayer bead that little Anne flicked out was the most intact one among them. He pressed the little phoenix down and gave it a good beating, while plucking a few of its feathers. However, this stimulated the little phoenix's ferocity even more. It was indeed worthy of being influenced by Li Qingshan's thoughts. I won't be lenient. If you lose, then die. Who wants you to be lenient? Hence, after flying for hundreds of thousands of miles, the little phoenix began an even more arduous prison life. The dark mountainside had become an arena. Go early and return early. Little Anne signaled to Li Qingshan before sitting down and continuing to meditate on the scriptures. After undergoing the 3rd heavenly tribulation and achieving balance between Buddhism and demonic, she gained a brand new understanding of Buddhist scriptures and dhyana. Right now, she was comprehending the scriptures of the school of Vinaya and the school of Chan once again. Li Qingshan turned around and left the dwelling, returning to the Clear River Prefecture. He planned on meeting a few old friends before heading north to the Chan Monastery of Deva with little Anne. However, he was still 50 kilometers away from Clear River City when demon chi surged into the air in the distance. What heavy demon chi up ahead? As soon as he said that, he heard a bellow from afar where the demon chi surged into the air. All of Li Qingshan's friends must die. Fuck your mother. Li Qingshan flew into a rage. He was no longer in the mood to ride the clouds leisurely anymore. A wave of air suddenly erupted behind him, whistling through the air. The swarm of insects flooded over. Hua Chenglu frowned and formed a seal with her fingers. The fragrance of flowers permeated the surroundings, and the lingering fragrance became tangible, wrapping around everyone on the deck. She suddenly left the dragon ship and flew over the surface of the water, flying towards the Clear River Prefecture. The huge dragon ship glided forwards a little further before being swallowed by the swarm of insects. With an ear-piercing screech, the sturdy hull of the ship was forcefully chewed to pieces by countless locusts. Even the sturdiest keel was gone. The mortals who had been enveloped by the fragrance had never seen such a terrifying sight even in their nightmares, and they flew over the river without touching the ground. Apart from Yu Shuquang, Huang Binghu, and Liu Hong who remained composed, everyone else shrieked hysterically. Hua Chenglu knew that this was not something that regular locusts could achieve, and locust diamonds would never stoop to eating food like that. It was still something the soaring locust king had done. The swarm of insects was not just a collection of locusts. All of the clones of the soaring locust king radiated with surging demon chi, merging with every corner of the swarm. Infected by the demon chi, the regular locusts mutated too. They swelled up, and their mouths sharpened. They went from insects that ate grass to carnivorous beasts. A single one was nothing. They might not even be more powerful than a wild dog, but what if there were millions of them? Although the lifespans of these transformed locusts were extremely short, less than an hour, they were the most vicious aspect of the locust plague. Wherever they passed by, there would be barren wasteland. The soaring locust king isn't just coming for these people. He's going to massacre the entire city. Hua Chenglu understood. Glancing out from the corner of her eye, she saw over a dozen locusts that had reached Demon General rush over from all directions. Including the boatman and helmsman on the ship, she had several dozen people with her. This was quite a burden on her, so she moved much slower. Just like how the Banyan Tree King and the Great Whale King were known for being big, the soaring Locust King was renowned for its speed for being soaring, which was why the encirclement of the cultivation community of the Green Province had failed time and time again. All of his clones had inherited this characteristic, so they were startlingly fast. Even if Hua Chenglu did not bring anyone with her, it would still be difficult for her to escape. "Commander, this won't do," Yu Shuquang said. "I know." Hua Chenglu's face stiffened. The fragrance that wrapped around her suddenly severed, abandoning all the mortals. She was no longer the little girl from before. Especially after experiencing the Banyan Tree King's wisdom imbuement, she had developed a determination to kill. The mortals stopped crying out and flew forwards a little further. Before they could even realize what was happening, they fell into the river with a plop. "No!" Liu Hong and Huang Binghu cried out miserably. Among them were disciples they had spent many years with, as well as clansmen who had placed all their hopes on them. "My apologies, my two fellows," Yu Shuquang sighed. Liu Hong and Huang Binghu were both speechless. With their experience, they could completely understand this choice, but they were unable to accept reality so easily. They had experienced so much danger along the way, yet the outcome was so horrific. Hua Chenglu immediately sped up, but she was not out of danger. The encirclement of the locust demon generals gradually closed in, and the buzzing of their flapping wings constantly drew closer. She tossed out another scarlet talisman, which suddenly turned into a whirlwind, pushing her forward rapidly. She charged out of the encirclement in a single stroke, but before she could even celebrate, a yellow figure flashed before her. A man blocked her way. The man had a pair of antennae on his head, and he wore layers of transparent locust wings on his back. His compound eyes were emotionless as he stared at Hua Chenglu. He asked, "You're also Li Qingshan's friend?" "That's right." Hua Chenglu's heart sank. She secretly took out an escape talisman, but the locust demon before her had already reached Demon Commander. He was far more powerful than her, so she was not confident about escaping even if she used an escape talisman. "How bold of you. You can be regarded as a beauty among humans, so you must taste very good. You want to use an escape talisman? Stop dreaming. You can't escape. If you didn't admit it, I might have spared your life, but now..." Chapter 995. Liu Zhongqing was handling official business in the government office. Official documents were piled up on the desk like small mountains. Even though he was a foundation-building cultivator whose energy and physical strength far surpassed that of ordinary people, he was still extremely busy, regretting not resigning from this position earlier. Suddenly, the soaring locust army arrived, and the alarm in the city rang out. He could not even be bothered with regret. He immediately requested reinforcements from the commandery city of Ruyi as he hurried to the parlor of clouds and rain. In order to guard against situations like this, every single prefectural city had golden core cultivators watching over it apart from large-scale formations. She was the person in charge of the formations. The person in charge of the Clear River Prefecture currently stood on the rooftop of the parlor of clouds and rain. She wore a solemn, black dress, and her face was covered by a thick, black veil. Her phoenix-like eyes stared at the swarm of insects that blanketed the sky. Suddenly, she called out, "Chenglu." She was about to fly up and provide assistance. "Sect Master Qiu, you mustn't." Liu Chongqing rushed over and tried to dissuade her. "Prefect Liu, Chenglu is still outside," Begonia frowned. "Even if you leave, you might not be able to save Commander Hua. If there's no one in charge of the formations in the city, the soaring Locust King will breach through it very soon. By then, the millions of lives here will all be devoured by the insect." Liu Chongqing bowed to the ground, rather afraid to look her in the eye. Begonia struggled for a moment before sighing in the end. She knew Liu Chongqing was right. Her cultivation was not weak, but she was not skilled in open battles. It was basically impossible for her to save Hua Chenglu from the sea of insects. The most rational choice was to hold on to the formations and buy as much time as possible, waiting for reinforcements from the Ruyi commandery. "Chenglu, you must escape," Begonia thought to herself, powering up the formations. Suddenly, she heard the roar of the soaring Locust King, and her heart paused. She thought of the scarlet-haired, scarlet-eyed demon instead. The sound waves spread into the distance. Everyone in the prefectural city felt like the roar was right beside their ears. Yu Shuquang and the others bore the brunt of it. They covered their ears and knelt on the ground as blood oozed from their mouths and noses. Their faces were filled with pain. If it were not for the protection of Hua Chenglu's fragrance, they might even have died on the spot. Hua Chenglu trembled slightly, but her expression did not change. She also possessed a few life-saving items, but they were all useless in such a dire situation. "Don't tell me I'm really going to die here today." The sky darkened as the cloud of insects passed through, whistling and buzzing as they swept towards the prefectural city in a black mass. The half-man, half-locust, terrifying flying locust demon commander let out a sinister smile. He did not come here just for the 3 words Li Qingshan. Even if Liu Hong and the rest did not know who Li Qingshan was, he would still hunt him down. It would just be a little less fun. If it were only for revenge, there would be no need for such a grand spectacle. A single flying locust demon commander would be enough. Attacking a prefectural city was something he had been planning for a very long time. After the plague of locusts and famine, thousands of villages had become desolate. Large numbers of people gathered in the prefectural city. If he could devour a prefectural city, not only would it deal a heavy blow to the cultivation community of the Green Province, but it would also increase the number and quality of his clones. This was a war between him and all the humans of the Green Province. Whether they were Li Qingshan's friends or not, they would all die. As for Li Qingshan, who had fled to the Mist Province, he would obviously go find him personally once he dealt with the Green Province. Golden light flashed through Hua Chenglu's eyes. Golden vines wrapped around her, blooming with golden sunflowers and erupting with resplendent, scorching light. Thousands of locusts shrieked as they were reduced to ashes. Even the flying locust demon general began to smoke as he retreated. The flying locust demon commander squinted his eyes slightly, and a streak of light shot towards his forehead. This was originally a life-saving sword talisman that the Sword Collection Palace had given to disciples. It was equivalent to the full-powered strike of a second Heavenly Tribulation sword cultivator. Hua Sungzon had specially given it to her. Child's play. The flying locust demon commander's mouth suddenly split open, turning into the mouthpiece of a locust. It bit down on the streak of light and swallowed it. Hua Chenglu immediately used this opportunity to activate the escape talisman, turning into a streak of light and shooting backwards, passing through the surging swarm of insects. "You're looking to die," the flying locust demon commander sneered. He did not pursue her. Hua Chenglu's escape talisman was a 5-kilometer escape talisman. It could turn into a streak of light and instantly travel 5 kilometers. Because the flying locust demon commander was blocking the way, the only direction she could choose was behind her. She did not even dare to travel to the left or right, afraid of being intercepted. All she could do was distance herself from the flying locust demon commander as much as possible, as well as the prefectural city of Clear River. However, after flying for 5 kilometers, she failed to escape alive. She discovered that she was in the sea of insects. She could no longer see or hear anything else. Only countless locusts surged towards her from all directions. The sound of their flapping wings was deafening. She just happened to retreat into the depths of the sea of insects. She had just moved from one desperate situation to another. She had already grown accustomed to death, and she had received enlightenment from the Banyan Tree King. Originally, she thought she could face it calmly, but she never thought she would still feel some fear when it really came down to it. She was unwilling to die to the insects, so she wanted to die with them. "Don't be afraid." Right at this moment, a familiar voice sounded out by her ear. She turned around in astonishment and noticed that she wasn't alone in this surging sea of insects. A man was looking at her with a calm smile on his face. The face in her memory didn't seem to have changed at all. Could it be a hallucination before her death? "Long time no see, Chenglu." Li Qingshan did not directly charge over because of the soaring Locust King's words. Instead, he completely hid his presence and used another concealment talisman. Seeing how Hua Chenglu and the others were in dire straits, he silently approached them, ready to save them. No one noticed him in the extremely chaotic situation. "Big brother Li." Hua Chenglu blinked her eyes and said in disbelief. The swarm of insects suddenly discovered Li Qingshan and surged over to bite and tear at him. "Demonify," Li Qingshan muttered. His demon heart flashed, and demon chi surged out violently. 100,000 locusts were knocked away and reduced to dust, creating a hole in the sea of insects. In the center of the hole, Li Qingshan was clad in demonic armor. The horned helmet covered half of his face, only revealing a pair of dark red eyes. His breastplate was like a roaring tiger's head. It was only the simplest form of protection, revealing his powerful, bronze skin. He gave off a vicious presence. "You've returned." Hua Chenglu smiled brightly after her initial shock. "Let me slaughter these insects first, and then we can catch up slowly." Li Qingshan wrapped his left hand around her waist and waved his right hand. Chains of demon suppression, swish. A chain that resembled a black dragon whistled out. It was several thousand meters long, coiling around his hand. With a gentle shake, it straightened out, and he swung it forward forcefully. The soaring Locust King could not be bothered with tormenting Yu Shuquang and the others anymore. Just when he was about to eat them, he was suddenly alarmed. A black chain suddenly split open the sea of insects, and 2 figures leapt out. Chains of demon suppression. "You are..." "What, soaring Locust King? You don't even recognize me anymore? Speaking of which, we've never met before, so I'll introduce you to me today." Chapter 996. The voice reached the prefectural city. Begonia was stunned, while Liu Changqing was overjoyed. "Qingshan's back. All right. I haven't even gone looking for you, yet you've actually delivered yourself to me. Watch how your friends die first." The soaring Locust King laughed viciously. Over a dozen flying locust demon generals struck out together. Their sharp, spear-like front legs stabbed towards the 3 of them randomly. However, before their laughter had even subsided, a series of blurs appeared in their eyes. Li Qingshan seemed to appear before every single flying locust demon general at the same time. He swung his fists, knife-hand strikes, elbows. In a single moment, the flying locust demon generals were all torn to pieces. Their juices splattered everywhere. Before the flying locust demon commander could even return to his senses, Li Qingshan had already arrived before him. He was basically right in his face. He asked, "Just by you? How is that possible?" The flying locust demon commander paled in fright. Li Qingshan's instantaneous burst of speed was actually enough to leave behind blurs in his eyes. This was not something a golden core cultivator or a demon commander could achieve. Hua Chenglu had already calmed down after seeing him. Hua Chenglu's mind eased up when she saw him. She completely stopped worrying now. As she gazed at his tall figure, the scenes in her memories overlapped. The West Gate granny of the past, the soaring locust king of the present. Her opponents ranged from weak chi practitioners to powerful demon kings, but he still stood before her, as if he could block out all the wind and rain. With a flash, the flying locust demon commander retreated rapidly, vanishing into the surging sea of insects. He wanted to use the insect swarm tactic to drown Li Qingshan. "Tell me, you're a mighty demon king, so how can you be so petty? I've only cursed you a little, yet you say something like all of Li Qingshan's friends have to die. Aren't you a little too stupid?" Li Qingshan walked slowly. He followed the flying locust demon commander at the same pace. The chains of demon suppression wove together into a net-like sphere, whistling as they revolved, tearing apart the locusts that lunged over. After becoming a demon king, even if he did not use any abilities, just his body alone was enough to crush the flying locust demon commander. The reason why he chose to demonify was to hide the demon chi that he leaked out unintentionally, as well as to give his ridiculously tough body a reasonable explanation. "You damned bald donkey." The flying locust demon marshal gritted his teeth. Seeing that he could not escape, he circulated all his demon chi and swiped at Li Qingshan's throat. "Bald donkey. How can I put up with you?" Li Qingshan casually grabbed the flying locust demon marshal's wrist, and the demon suppression chain coiled around him, firmly binding him. He grabbed his head, pulled it in front of him, and pointed at his own head. "This is called hair." The flying locust demon marshal's killing intent skyrocketed. His mouth cracked open into a ferocious mouthpart as he bit down on Li Qingshan's head. Li Qingshan raised his head and headbutted him. The sharp mouthparts were broken and scattered. "Damn it! Damn it! Damn it!" The flying locust demon marshal struggled with all its might, the chains of demon suppression creaking. "Demon suppression," Li Qingshan chanted, and the demon suppression tower descended from above. With a rumble, it crushed the flying locust demon marshal beneath it. With a thought, the demon suppression tower rapidly shrank, flying back into his hand. He glanced inside, and the flying locust demon marshal turned back into a tiny locust. It seemed to be suppressed by the demon suppression tower very much. "Li Qingshan, you'll regret this," said the flying locust demon marshal. "I think I've heard you say that before. Whatever. If you're dissatisfied, then send your original body." Li Qingshan did not care. He planned on taking the flying locust demon marshal back for Yushin to study. If it was useless, then he could get little and to use the Buddha slaying sword. He would definitely be able to injure the soaring locust king's body. Hua Chenglu used her cultivation method to protect the three of them. As she watched Li Qingshan vanish into the sea of insects with the flying locust demon marshal, she became rather worried about whether he would be in danger or not. However, Li Qingshan strolled back. The revolving chains of demon suppression tore apart the locusts that lunged over. Did he escape? Hua Chenglu stopped worrying when she saw how he was safe and sound. With your big brother Li taking action, do you really think he can escape? Li Qingshan showed off the exquisite demon suppression tower in his hand with a smile. Hua Chenglu was surprised. Originally, she thought even if she could not catch up to him after all these years of painstaking cultivation, she would not fall too far behind. She never thought his cultivation would actually reach such an unbelievable level. Qingshan. Before the three of them could even react to what had happened, the name Li Qingshan still echoed through their heads. When they actually looked at the Li Qingshan before them, they felt like they were afraid to recognize him. Sure enough, it's my old friends. The locusts have found the right target. Li Qingshan smiled. Liu Hong, Huang Binghu, and Yu Shuquang had all had important interactions with him in the past, and they had all assisted him in the past. The locusts in the surroundings suddenly stopped attacking them. They flew off in a grandiose manner. Li Qingshan frowned. They sure don't give up. As it turned out, the soaring locust king had not given up even though the flying locust demon commander had been captured. He continued to lead the army of locusts towards the prefectural city. The cloud of insects passed through, and the surroundings lit up. Their field of vision opened up again. All Hua Chenglu saw was the black swarm of insects entrenched in the protective formations, attacking madly without any fear of death. They basically turned the prefectural city into a ball of insects. Before long, the protective formations were on the verge of collapse. It was impossible for a formation that enveloped such a large area to be too sturdy in the first place. After hearing Li Qingshan's voice, Begonia became slightly agitated. She lost some of her control over the formation. With Liu Changqing at the lead, the cultivators stationed in the city constantly unleashed techniques. Fire, water, and lightning surged into the sky, killing a large number of locusts. However, there were just far too many locusts, numbering in the hundreds of millions. It was impossible to kill all of them. The black cloud of insects remained entrenched in the sky the entire time, as if they were pressing down bit by bit. Even the cultivators could not help but show fear, while the regular people were scared out of their wits. Some hid in the buildings and trembled, while others ran around the streets like headless flies, crying out. It truly seemed like the end of the world. Big Brother Li, what do we do? Hua Chenglu asked. If the locusts managed to get into the city, even without a great threat like the flying locust demon commander, they could easily cause hundreds of thousands or even millions of casualties. Easy. Li Qingshan flipped his right hand and lifted up another item. This is the Azura field. Afterwards, it was said that the North Moon had taken away the Azura field, so how did it end up in Big Brother Li's hands now? Li Qingshan tossed the Azura field into the air, and it rapidly expanded, hovering above the Clear River Prefecture. Suddenly, it released a blood-red swirl, sucking in the swarm of locusts into the Azura field. Their numbers were terrifying, but it was not like there was no way to deal with them. Although the locusts had demonified, they were still regular wild beasts after all. How could they stop a supreme arcane treasure? Li Qingshan, I, the soaring locust king, will definitely make you die without a proper burial. All of your family and friends will die horrible death. The swarm of locusts roared out furiously, vaguely revealing a vicious face. Li Qingshan only responded with a great laugh. Begonia immediately felt the pressure on her lesson drastically. She could not help but look in the direction of the laughter. When she saw Li Qingshan's figure, she could not help but shudder inside. Li Qingshan sensed something and glanced over. So it's her. She really has undergone the second heavenly tribulation already. Although she wore a solemn, black dress, it was unable to conceal her impressive figure. Her face hidden behind the black veil instead added a sense of mystery and allure to her. When he recalled everything from the past, he could not help but nod with a smile. However, Begonia immediately looked away, no longer looking at him. Li Qingshan was rather confused, but he was in no mood to pay attention to this right now. He focused on powering the Azura field and continuing to devour the swarm of locusts. A group of cultivators from the 100 schools of thought had rushed over to provide assistance. They all stopped at this moment, watching this from afar. The Azura field. Li Qingshan. Han Tie's cold face was also slightly shocked. After all these years, had he already become so powerful? Our school of novels disciple has returned. Liu Chuanfeng was overjoyed. The disciples of the school of novels behind him had heard the name Li Qingshan repeated for many years. However, most of them had not even seen Li Qingshan before and had only heard it as a story. Unexpectedly, seeing him with their own eyes, they found him to be even more amazing than the stories. The cultivators in the prefectural city also stopped casting their techniques and raised their heads to watch this unimaginable battle. After Li Qingshan captured the flying locust demon marshal alive, the remaining flying locust king's clones were completely powerless to deal with such a situation. They could only control their bodies and not be drawn into the Azura field. However, They gradually separated from the ordinary locusts and could only flee in all directions. Li Qingshan appeared in the sky above the prefectural city in a flash. Demon suppression chains flew out and pierced through the backs of the locusts, suppressing and capturing them. In an instant, the terrifying locust plague was completely eliminated. Everyone felt that it was surreal. Li Qingshan still held the small demon suppression tower in his right hand. Many thin chains hung down from his left hand. Each chain had a string of locusts threaded through it, and they were all struggling to move. He dispersed the demonic armor around him and stood in the void. He looked down at the familiar city below and felt the familiar aura. A smile appeared on his face. Everyone was also looking up at him. The cultivators seemed to be looking at an unbelievable miracle, while the mortals saw a savior. "It's Li Qingshan who saved us," someone said. It was all thanks to the flying locust king's repeated words. Then, cheers rang out and gradually grew louder. Countless people walked onto the streets and shouted his name. "Hello everyone. It's just a small matter. No need to be so polite." Li Qingshan smiled and waved at the crowd. The string of locusts in his hand also shook with him. He was in a very good mood. Although he did not mind doing bad things, doing good things still made him quite happy. However, in the eyes of the cultivators, they felt like this would damage his bearing when he swept through the locusts. Even if he refused to leave and hide his contributions and fame and insisted on enjoying everyone's cheers, he should maintain the bearing that a cultivator should possess. Hua Chenglu smiled. Big Brother Li was still the same Big Brother Li. He would always do something a little strange. "Sect Master Qiu, I'll be the host today. I'll host a banquet in the Parlor of Clouds and Rain to welcome my old friends from the Clear River Prefecture." Chapter 997. Sect Master Qiu. This, Liu Changqing was tongue-tied. Li Qingshan was a great hero who had saved the Clear River Prefecture after all, so how could she treat him like this? However, ever since Begonia returned to the Clear River Prefecture, she seemed to have changed into a different person. Not only did she investigate deeply, but she had completely vanished from her old ways of using money and power. She would always treat people with some coldness. However, with her cultivation, she obviously had the right to do that. No one dared to say anything. Even now, it was difficult for Liu Changqing, the prefect of the Clear River Prefecture, to persuade her otherwise. The difference in cultivation was obvious. Li Qingshan was surprised as well. Why did Begonia not seem happy at all when she saw him? Instead, she seemed extremely cold. It was no wonder that she had not contacted him after emerging from seclusion. Did she have a change of heart? However, it was not like he had the right to blame her for her change of heart. "If you don't want to welcome me, then don't. Why do you look like a dead man when you're dressed like this?" "I'm a dead man. My condolences." Li Qingshan caught a whiff of heavy resentment, so it was even more difficult for him to say anything. The only person who could make her fall in love with someone else must have been a cultivator. He would not have died of illness or illness for no reason. He must have been killed. Over the past few years, the soaring locust king had probably caused the greatest casualties among cultivators in the Green Province. As a result, he said, "This soaring locust king really is despicable." As he said that, he was about to leave, but he heard Begonia say, "It's not the soaring locust king. It's the dragon king of the sea." "The dragon king of the sea?" Li Qingshan stopped. "Sister Qiu, do you still miss that North Moon?" Hua Chenglu walked over. Li Qingshan looked back and looked at Begonia in surprise. Begonia avoided his gaze. "He's just a wretched demon. What's there to miss?" Li Qingshan smiled. "All right, since you're not going to welcome me, let's go somewhere else. We'll come again another day." At this moment, Han Thierry and the others arrived on the rooftop. "You guys stay, I'll leave." Begonia flew into the sky. Li Qingshan looked at her flying figure and couldn't help but shake his head. He didn't know whether he should be happy or worried about the infatuation of a beauty. Big Brother Li, because of the North Moon, Sister Qiu's temper has been rather strange in the past few years, Hua Chenglu explained for Begonia. She did not want the two of them to be on bad terms. "It's nothing, I've seen many weird people. Li Qingshan smiled and asked Han Tie, where is your sister? He's currently in secluded cultivation in the Rui Commandery. Han Tie was originally rather displeased with Li Qingshan. As soon as this son-in-law of the Han family went to the Mist Province, there was no news of him at all. He was truly irresponsible. However, when he arrived before Li Qingshan, he was unable to voice his displeasure. He was not afraid of Li Qingshan's strength, nor was he grateful for Li Qingshan's benevolence. Instead, he sensed a sense of upliftment and ambition from him. As a cultivator, if he could not forge ahead valiantly and increase his cultivation as much as possible, could he still be considered a cultivator? The teachings of the Han family had always been to look down on those who were infatuated with love. They admired his personality. It was exactly because of this that his elder sister, who had no interest in men at all and could even ignore a handsome man like Wasungzon, fell in love with him. Sigh, that sure is unfortunate, but it doesn't matter. I'll be spending a lot of time in the Green Province in the future. Big Brother Li, aren't you the White Hawk commander of the South Sea Commandery? Don't you have to return to the Mist Province? Hua Chenglu asked. As a member of the Hawkwolf Guard, she still valued the authority of the Hawkwolf Guard very much. I've been promoted. Sir Hawk God, our protector, has personally appointed me to go to the Dragon Province to be appointed, said Li Qingshan. The protector Hawk God. Doesn't that mean you have to go to the Dragon Province? Hua Chenglu was reluctant to part with him. Sir Hawk God can't be so unreasonable. I've been away from the Green Province for so many years, and it's rare for me to return, so I need to get some proper rest. I'll go to the sect and greet my master, and I have some important matters I need to deal with in my life. Yeah, and as a disciple of the School of Novels, you can't not write for so long, Liu Chuanfeng interrupted from the side. If you hadn't mentioned it, I would have almost forgotten that I'm still a disciple of the School of Novels. Li Qingshan smiled. Qingshan, you can't forget your roots. You're a member of the School of Novels when you're alive, and you'll be a ghost of the School of Novels when you're dead. Liu Chuanfeng also smiled. You're the one who's dead. All right, I'll start writing again when I have the time, Li Qingshan agreed without any hesitation. Very soon, the banquet was set up on the rooftop. Li Qingshan sat in the main seat like it was obvious. I came back in a hurry this time, so I didn't specially prepare any gifts. However, I did gather some local products from the Mist Province over the years, so please have a taste. The spiritual fruits, medicinal herbs, and alcohol were all spoils of war he had slaughtered his way here. They were no longer of any use to him, so he could only taste them. It was perfect for treating the guests. However, the significance to the Foundation establishment cultivators was completely different. Just from the glow they glowed with, they could tell their value. They only accepted it after a series of excuses, thanking Li Qingshan. Big Brother Li, I heard that the South is a land of wilderness. May I ask how it's different from the Green Province? Hua Chenglu looked at Li Qingshan seriously. Just now, she was unable to see him clearly in the chaotic battle, but right now, she could sense how he was changing within the unchanging. He seemed more and more confident and high-spirited, as if the world was within his grasp. Suddenly, she thought of the kiss from many years ago. In terms of what's special, there's a lot. Li Qingshan drank a cup of alcohol and mentioned the various local customs and practices of the Mist Province, the man-eating bone-eating tribes, the savage mountain where demonic cultivators gathered, the mysterious Merfolk Sea Fair, the banyan forest that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Hua Chenglu became rather entranced as she listened. Yearning filled her eyes. The distant land of the south was far more wondrous than the descriptions in books. The rooftop fell silent. Everyone else listened attentively too. They were cultivators countless times more powerful than mortals, but just like how mortals could not leave a village or a city, they also had their own restraints. It was possible that they could never reach the distant South Sea in their entire lives. As he spoke, Li Qingshan's gaze drifted about. The scenes of the past flashed through his eyes again, as well as the dangers he could not mention. Only when he returned to his senses and saw the familiar faces and the familiar night scenery around him did he come to a realization. I've really returned. Li Qingshan gazed at the starry sky. He worked hard in search of strength, but strength was not just about defeating something or possessing something. Instead, it was about breaking free from restraints and seeing sights he had never seen before, going to places he had never been to before. Beyond the 9 heavens was still a little far away, but he had not let down his promise to himself. After the banquet, everyone dispersed. Li Qingshan became slightly tipsy. Liu Chuanfeng invited him to return to Cloud Wisp Island to take a look, but he turned it down. "I'll return to my dwelling first and deal with the clone of the soaring Locust King. I'll go to the 100 schools of thought in a few days." Afterwards, he left Clear River City. He did not return to the Chain Mountains. Instead, he flew southwest based on his senses and arrived before a lake surrounded by mountains. He sensed the aura from the bottom of the lake and leapt into the water with a smile. Chapter 998. Deep into the night, the prefectural city recovered its peace. On the docks to the west of the city, lanterns lit up with the stars in the sky. The 2 banks of the river were dotted with torches, moving about in the darkness. All the disciples of the Iron Fist headquarters searched along the 2 banks. Liu Hong leaned against a weeping willow as he gazed at the pitch-black clear river silently. Huang Binghu pulled away slightly and stood nearby. He was also stern. "I'm useless. I've troubled you, master." Li Long knelt on the ground. "I'm just a bag of old bones. If I die, then so be it. It's just a pity that your senior brother's family." Liu Hong let out a long sigh and helped Li Long up. "It's not your fault. It's all fate. Senior brother is blessed by the heavens, and you're skilled in martial arts. You'll definitely make it safely," Li Long comforted him. Before long, a call rang out from the darkness. "Found him. Found him." A disciple of the Drawn Reins village was rescued by a fishing boat and discovered by the searchers. Huang Binghu let out a sigh of relief. Very soon, the survivors were found one by one, slightly more than what he had imagined. Over 5 kilometers downstream, Wang Lei emerged from the river with Yi Dachuan, whose fate was unknown. After being tossed into the water, he immediately held his breath and sank to the bottom of the lake. As it turned out, regular locusts still moved based on their instincts. They would not enter the water, but the Clear River Prefecture was famous for its rivers. The water system was well developed, so basically everyone knew how to swim. It was a blessing in disguise. Afterwards, the Flying Locust Demon Commander was captured by Li Qingshan, and the Soaring Locust King ordered the army of locusts to attack the city with everything they had, allowing them to escape. However, many of them were drowned or bitten to death. Their whereabouts were even unknown. Wang Lei personally saw Yi Dachuan's wife flop around on the surface of the water, crying for help. The locusts ate her head off. There was also an unlucky person from the Drawn Reins village who was caught by a locust demon that had lunged into the water. In the blink of an eye, even his bones had vanished. "As long as you're alive, as long as you're alive." Liu Hong's eyes were filled with tears as he clutched Wang Lei's shoulders tightly. He didn't have any children, so Wang Lei was like his own son. "Master, senior brother, it's cold outside. Hurry up and get on the carriage." Li Long called out to Huang Binghu, "Manor Master Huang, I'll give you a ride." "There's no need for that. Thank you for your kindness, fellow Daoist. If there's anything I can do for you in the future, just let me know." Huang Binghu thanked Li Long, then led the rest of his clansmen away from the dock, disappearing into the streets of the city. Li Long sent Liu Hong to the carriage and was about to follow up when his ears twitched as if he had heard something. Disregarding his status, he lay on the ground and listened carefully. The sound grew louder and louder until he heard a familiar buzzing sound. Li Long stood up in disbelief. As he looked at the stars on the horizon being swallowed by the darkness, he roused all of his spiritual qi and roared out as loudly as he could, "The locust plague." Liu Changqing had returned from the parlor of clouds and rain. He was in a great mood, and he was slightly drunk as well. He was currently splashing ink freely when he suddenly heard the sound. His hand that held the brush immediately trembled, and the ink spread. A ripple appeared on the surface of the lake, and the moonlight rippled with it. The lake could not be regarded as large, so Li Qingshan arrived at the bottom of the lake very soon. He arrived at the dwelling hidden at the bottom of the lake. Begonia currently sat with her legs crossed, with her back towards him. She said without even looking back, "Li Qingshan, what have you come for? If I remember correctly, I have a share here as well. Your man has returned from danger, so why don't you stand up to welcome him?" Li Qingshan arrived behind her with a smile, extending his hand towards her slender waist. "My man's surname isn't Li." Begonia shone with scarlet light, blocking Li Qingshan's hand. "Is there a difference? But since you like it." Li Qingshan's expression changed. His fangs elongated, and his scarlet hair draped down. His hands forcefully passed through the scarlet light and pulled her into his embrace. He whispered into her ear, "Isn't this better? Let go." Begonia's body stiffened. "Since you don't care about me, why did you come?" "Because you care about me." Li Qingshan smiled. "Piss off." Begonia barked. "I'm just joking. I clearly told you to contact me as soon as you emerged from secluded cultivation. You piss off." Begonia shone with scarlet light, dyeing the dwelling at the bottom of the lake red. The lake water above rippled with scarlet light as well. Li Qingshan knew that now was not the time to be reasonable. He apologized by her ear and whispered sweet nothings into her ear. Just as he had expected, the scarlet light gradually dimmed. She no longer resisted violently. Smelling her faint fragrance and embracing her soft body, he felt even more intoxicated. He kissed her cheek through the black veil, but he saw that the corner of her eyes were glistening. She was actually crying silently. He could not help but be taken aback. Cultivators would not experience such great emotional fluctuations easily. Suddenly, he experienced an indescribable feeling, and his lust vanished. He asked gently, "What's wrong? Haven't I returned? What are you crying for?" "I know you're lying to me," Begonia grumbled. "Fine then. I admit I mixed in a little, but it's definitely not a lie," said Li Qingshan. He was not some infatuated man who liked to do whatever he wanted, but he was not a plant. He could not be emotionless. "Then how much did you mix in the parlor of clouds and rain?" Begonia asked. Ever since she emerged from seclusion and returned to the parlor of clouds and rain, she wanted to contact Li Qingshan. However, when she was not around, Li Qingshan had become the owner of the parlor of clouds and rain for a period of time. This was no different from releasing a monkey into a peach orchard. He could indulge himself and do whatever he wanted. Although this was nothing out of the ordinary in the cultivation world, she was the master of the parlor of clouds and rain. It was basically intolerable, so she cut him off in a fit of anger. Cough, cough. "That's all for show. I don't have any feelings." Li Qingshan rubbed his nose and felt rather embarrassed. "Did you know?" Begonia's voice drifted away. "I've always been waiting for you. I've been waiting for you to lie to me and coax me." Begonia turned around and looked at Li Qingshan tearfully. Li Qingshan was very touched. He pulled her into his arms and comforted her gently. Begonia pressed her face against his chest. She vaguely made up her mind and wrapped her arms around his waist tightly. The moonlight shone through the lake, reflecting the crystal ceiling. It rippled with a faint, blue light. It was dark and tranquil. A while later, Li Qingshan removed her black veil. Her bare face carried faint traces of tears, but it was as beautiful as a crabapple. His breathing halted. He was slightly taken aback. He smiled. "You've become prettier again. No wonder you wear a veil. It's all because of you," Begonia said extremely seriously. She had not wasted the past few years. Instead, she had worked hard on the heart-dyeing art of rouge. Perhaps it was because she was compatible with the cultivation method, but she progressed rather quickly. She was glowing. Furthermore, he was more confident in using that spell. Li Qingshan was even more touched. He lowered his head and kissed her delicate red lips. After a deep kiss, he carried her horizontally and walked to the thick fur-covered stone bed. He had thought that she would be shy and struggle. He did not expect that she would curl up in his arms, as docile as a kitten. On the stone bed, there was another round of intimate and caressing. Qiu Haitang's face was flushed red. Her cloud-like black hair scattered down. Her ample bosom rose and fell slightly, and her black dress was a bit messy. Your man is not dead. It's too inauspicious to dress like this. How about? Li Qingshan said as he gently hooked her belt. Begonia's face became even redder. She closed her eyes tightly but did not object. Li Qingshan chuckled. He was about to undress the beauty when he saw Begonia's expression change. He could not help but ask, "What's wrong?" "Someone is attacking the prefectural city. I'm afraid it's the Flying Locust King. I have to hurry back. The defensive formation cannot be left unattended." Li Qingshan took a deep breath and pressed down on Begonia's shoulder. "Wait for me here. I'll be back soon." "But, no buts, this is a man's business." With a boom, the lake splashed into the sky. Li Qingshan spread his wings and flew into the astral wind layer. His expression was extremely ferocious. This time, he was truly angry. Any man who was interrupted at this time would want to kill someone. Arriving high in the sky, Li Qingshan summoned the demon-suppressing pagoda with his right hand and asked the Flying Locust Demon Marshal, "Flying Locust King, was it you again? How is it, Li Qingshan, you didn't expect this, right? In the words of you humans, this is called a sudden thrust. Do you think I'll be scared just because I lost a few clones?" The Flying Locust King said complacently. Ever since Li Qingshan demonstrated startling strength and captured the Flying Locust Demon Commander, he had immediately begun planning a second attack. Sure enough, he had grasped the opportunity. After sweeping through such a large-scale locust plague, everyone relaxed. They felt like they had survived a crisis. Begonia and Li Qingshan left the prefectural city one after another, leaving behind an unattended defensive formation. "You're welcome to come a few more times. I'd like to see just how many clones you have for me to kill," Li Qingshan sneered. "There's no need for a few more times. Once is enough. I'd advise you to stop, or I'll start a massacre," the Flying Locust King warned. "Do you think you can threaten me? You don't care about the lives of others, but what about that bitch from the Hawkwolf Guard? She's your partner, right? What do you think I'll do once I capture her? Don't you dare." Li Qingshan widened his eyes furiously. He recalled how Hua Chenglu had said she would return to the Hawkwolf Guard to deal with official matters after the banquet. She was still in Clear River City right now. "I've said I'll kill all of your friends and family, but if you're a little more sensible and let go of all of my clones, I can consider sparing that bitch's life. Soaring Locust King, if I don't kill you, my surname won't be Li." Li Qingshan's deep voice was filled with brutal killing intent, which made the Soaring Locust King shiver inside. He still wanted to say something, but Li Qingshan had already stowed the demon suppression tower away. He unfurled his wings of wind and flew towards the Clear River Prefecture, stirring up the atmospheric winds. "Commander Qian, I'm Liu Chongqing. The locust plague has come again. Please send reinforcements immediately." Liu Chongqing requested reinforcements from the Rui Commandery again. Chapter 999. There were only a tenth of the number of locusts this time, and their overall quality was nowhere near as great. However, there was still a Flying Locust Demon Commander among them. He turned into a huge locust, the size of a soaring dragon ship. He flapped his wings and took to the air before smashing down viciously. This time, no one could stop him. Boom, 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 boom. Without anyone to control the formations, they could only use the most basic of defense. Under the repeated collisions, they reached the brink of collapse very soon. In the hall of the Hawkwolf Guard, several dozen Scarlet Wolf Guards stood sternly. The great rumble was like thunder, striking against everyone's hearts viciously. The cries of fear from the mortals were like a tsunami, surging into the silent hall and throwing their minds into disorder. Even though they had been through 100 battles, many of their foreheads became covered in sweat. Only the woman before them remained absolutely composed. "Commander, what do you think we should do?" Yu Shuquang asked. "The locust diamonds are about to break through the city. Disperse. If you have the opportunity to save people, do so. If not, hide and wait for reinforcement," said Hua Chenglu. Everyone looked at one another. An order like that would make them feel dejected without a doubt. Are there any other orders? Yu Shuquang asked. Without my orders, don't return here. Hua Chenglu waved her hand and made her way towards the stairs. Commander, you're staying behind? Yu Shuquang frowned. Although the Hawkwolf Guard was one of the few structures in the prefectural city that possessed their own formations, the eye-catching Scarlet Hawk on the rooftop would definitely make this place the soaring Locust King's main target. Cut the nonsense and disperse. Hua Chenglu glanced back at Yu Shuquang before disappearing on the stairs. Yes. Yu Shuquang wanted to say something, but he clasped his hands in the end. With his cultivation, he was unable to help her at all. Hua Chenglu immediately noticed everyone's gazes and frowned. If she had guessed correctly, the soaring Locust King's first target this time was definitely her. She seemed to be able to sense the great malice of the flying Locust Demon Commander in the sky. The gaze from her compound eyes pierced through the floors and gathered on her. She directly returned to her room on the top floor. She sucked in a deep breath and took out a formation and a stack of talismans. She began casting them down. With a loud bang, under the bombardment of the flying Locust Demon Commander, the defensive formation gave off a final burst of light before shattering. Billions of locusts came crashing down. Hua Chenglu stood before the floor-to-ceiling window, holding a cup of tea. A few flower petals floated over the deep red tea. The floor-to-ceiling window in front of him was covered with talismans, and so were the surrounding walls. They faintly formed a hole. On the ceiling of the room, a small golden bell floated, and a simple golden bell formation was established. But it didn't give her the slightest sense of security. Suddenly, she thought of that tall figure and shook her head with a bitter smile. It couldn't be such a coincidence every time. She downed the tea in one gulp. How long she could last was up to fate. There was only one thing, and that was that he absolutely could not fall into the hands of the enemy. The cloud of locusts split into several large groups above the prefectural city, attacking various regions of the prefecture. After arriving in these regions, they split into several dozen groups again, attacking every single street. They were like a well-trained army. No, even an army could not be so coordinated. A group of homeless beggars fled madly through the streets, almost driven mad by the countless flapping wings. What made them feel even more despair was the buzzing that grew closer and closer behind them. A locust the size of a human head lunged at the young beggar at the very back. Its sharp mandibles bit into his shoulder, and blood spurted out. The young beggar screamed as he struggled desperately, but he was swallowed by the locusts that arrived afterwards. His screams came to a halt. A beggar could not help but look back, but all he saw was a gaping mandible lunging at him. A series of screams rang out briefly before dying down very quickly. The people who had been lunged at by the locusts were devoured very quickly. Not even their bones remained. All that was left behind was a ground littered with tattered clothes and dark red bloodstains. The strength of a single locust was probably not much greater than a wild dog, but their sharp mandibles and the way they flew were all incomparable to wild dogs. The most terrifying part was their bloodthirsty madness. The locusts that had eaten human flesh rapidly swelled, and their demon chi showed signs of condensing too. As long as they continued to eat, not only would they not die rapidly, but they could even become one of the countless clones of the soaring Locust King. This was why the soaring Locust King did not care about its losses. Regular locusts could be replenished with insect eggs buried deep underground, while clones could be transformed from regular locusts. They could constantly roll on like a snowball until there was no more snow left. At the very front was an old, grey-haired beggar. Every single step he took was more than 10 steps away from others. Even as he fled, he gripped a metal club firmly in his hand as miserable cries rang out. He suddenly stopped and turned around, staring straight at the incoming swarm of locusts. Insect-free world. With a flick of his wrist, he unleashed a series of blurs with the club. Over a dozen locusts were sent flying. "You damned demonic insects, I am the leader of the beggar sect, Hong." Before the old beggar could finish his sentence, a gust of wind blew past. A giant locust lunged at him. He hurriedly used his metal club to block it. With a crack, the metal club was bitten in half. Duke-ju. He channeled all his internal energy and slammed his palm on the giant locust's head. Viscous liquid splattered everywhere. If it was a human or beast, they would have been dead for sure. However, the giant locust only paused for a moment before its mandibles continued to bite down. Crack! Duke-Jew! The beggars wailed. An old head flew into the air, filled with disbelief. Before it landed on the ground, it was grabbed by a locust and started devouring it. The life force of insects had always been renowned for its toughness. Even the most ordinary of insects was like that, let alone one of the clones of the soaring locust king. The soaring locust king used regular locusts to deal with regular people, and it controlled clones of different powers to hunt down these humans who could still put up a fight. It did not blindly use the tactic of swarming them. Instead, it pushed its advantage in numbers to the limit, doing its best to devour as many humans as possible. It was like a cold chess player overlooking the chessboard. Even when they hid in buildings, they were unable to stop the locusts from breaking in. The most powerful clone of the soaring locust king that directly led the army of locusts, the flying locust demon commander, stood in front of a gate in the city that was extremely difficult to breach. Bitch, bitch, bitch. Get your ass out here. The flying locust demon commander swung its right claw violently. Light surged, and wood and rock were sent flying. The formations of the Hawkwolf Guard were ripped apart in a single move, leaving behind 4 terrifyingly huge claw marks. Catcher, catcher, crack. The floor-to-ceiling window in front of Hua Changlu began to crack. Over a dozen talismans were reduced to ash, revealing a vicious face that was half human, half locust. It was less than 3 meters away. Chapter 1000. Right when the flying locust demon commander was about to breach the city, the woman's figure vanished from the slope outside the Clear River Prefecture. All that was left was the rustling of the night wind. Amidst the chaotic streets, the way she moved reminded one of the word wandering. She evaded all the obstacles silently and swiftly. Her body blended into the surrounding scenery. Be it humans or locusts, they could not see her. A large swarm of insects blocked her path. She turned around and stepped into a remote alleyway. A locust suddenly rushed towards her. It carried a child with its 6 legs as it wailed aloud. My child! My child! With a miserable cry, a disheveled woman rushed out of the main entrance without any regard, chasing after the locust. The woman tilted her body slightly and brushed past the locust. The locust bit the child, and blood spurted. A droplet of blood stopped in the air and landed on the woman's cheek, like a red mole. She smiled and extended her tongue to lick away the blood. She cast the cries from the alleyway behind her and arrived near the Hawkwolf Guard very soon. She exhaled gently, and her aura became even deeper. She slowed down a lot again. She happened to see the eagle forged from copper fall from the top of the building, producing a great rumble and kicking up a cloud of dust. Hua Changlu retreated into the center of the room, if it could still be called a room, below the small, golden bell. Don't be afraid, little treasure. I won't kill you. The flying locust demon commander stepped into the room and made his way towards her. As he spoke, his mandibles opened and closed. With a thunk, a golden bell constructed from spiritual light enveloped Hua Changlu. The bell chimed melodiously. The flying locust demon commander placed his claws on the golden bell, and the chimes immediately twisted. The golden bell twisted and ripped apart as well. He suddenly swung his right claw. Get out here. Determination filled Hua Changlu's eyes. They shone with dazzling light, vaguely resembling a blooming sunflower. You want to die? It won't be that easy. What is this? The flying locust demon commander's movements stiffened. He lowered his head and looked down. A beautiful, tiny snake had pierced through the floor and bit his ankle, accompanied by intense pain. In the deep darkness outside the building, a pair of eyes suddenly lit up. A thin pupil in the golden whites of the eyes met the compound eyes of the flying locust demon commander. His body was dyed with a layer of gray, as if he was about to turn into stone. Viper hell! With a hair-raising hiss, countless snakes shot out of the darkness and bit the flying locust demon commander. The flying locust demon marshal howled, feeling the pain that penetrated deep into his soul. Sister Chenglu, now is not the time to seek death. Qian Rongji walked out of the darkness and stepped into the broken room. Her snake eyes made her smile a little scary. Big Sister Qian, you've come so quickly. Hua Chenglu was surprised. It still took her some time to get here from the Rui Commandery. Sister Chenglu is in trouble, so of course I have to be quick, Qian Rongji said. You and this city are both very good bait. Bitch, you're courting death. The flying locust demon commander shuddered, and the grayish-white petrification collapsed. With a roar, he turned around and lunged at Qian Rongji. Even the coiling snakes were unable to restrain him. Qian Rongji's pupils returned to normal, and 2 streaks of bloody tears rolled down her cheeks. She had suffered a backlash from the technique. She thought, he really is a great demon king after all. His willpower is startlingly great. He can maintain such mobility in the viper hell. Be careful. Hua Chenglu called out. If a golden core cultivator was approached by a powerful carapaced demon commander, there would basically be no good outcome. However, the flying locust demon commander paused and lowered his head in disbelief. Qian Rongji gently pressed her hand against his chest. The heaven-climbing vine penetrated his tough carapace, reaching into every corner of his body. Qian Rongji closed her eyes and revealed a joyful expression. Endless power surged into her body. Even the pain from the snakes subsided. If the locusts had come here to massacre the city and eat the people, then she had come to eat the flying locust demon commander. I'll remember you. The flying locust demon commander said viciously. With a thump, his body collapsed, kicking up a cloud of dust. He was even lighter than she had imagined, as if he was just an empty shell. He no longer possessed the slightest hint of life. Thank you, Sister Qian. Hua Chenglu thanked her politely. Qian Rongji had a very good reputation in the Rui Commandery, and she had always been kind and gentle to people. However, after the wisdom imbuement, she always developed an instinctive sense of vigilance, or perhaps fear, towards Qian Rongji. Just like how a newborn calf did not fear a tiger, only the ignorant could be fearless. The wisdom that the banyan tree king had shared with her allowed her to distinguish many dangers that regular people could not sense. You're welcome. Qian Rongji smiled. The tiny snakes slithered back onto her skin, slipping under the White Wolf commander's uniform. Suddenly, she turned around and said, "The person you've been waiting for has arrived." Boom! A black figure descended from the sky, and Li Qingshan emerged from the cloud of dust. Chenglu, are you fine? Big brother Li, I'm fine. Sister Qian saved me. Hua Chenglu made her way over. Qian Rongji. Li Qingshan frowned and gazed at Qian Rongji. He never thought she would actually undergo the second heavenly tribulation too. Long time no see, Qingshan. Qian Rongji greeted him warmly. Her face brimmed with a warm smile, but she felt a powerful pressure, as if a vicious tiger was staring at her. Don't smile at me, Li Qingshan said. Sorry, I forgot. Qian Rongji's smile vanished as well. She gave off a cold aura and asked, what do you mean? Hua Chenglu was taken aback. Hua Chenglu was taken aback. She had never seen Qian Rongji act like that before. She drew closer to Li Qingshan instinctively. No problem. Li Qingshan glanced at the corpse of the flying locust demon commander on the ground. Just like many years ago, there was no need for empty thanks between them. All they needed was an actual exchange of benefits. Li Qingshan did not want to owe this woman a favor either. Let's talk about it later, although I don't mind looking at this a little longer. Qian Rongji gazed out of the building. The noisy night had yet to pass. Many places were lit up. The locust army in the city had already collapsed. They hunted with their instincts to devour flesh and blood. When the flying locust demon commander was slain, they had retreated from all their clones and fled in all directions. As a result, Li Qingshan played the role of savior again. However, this time, his Azura field could only suck away the locusts on the streets. Most of the locusts were hunting humans in the buildings, so he was forced to engage in even more complicated battles in the streets. He was powerful, but he could not help but feel rather restrained. With a thought, Yin Qing descended from the sky with a group of Azura and began a search through the entire city. Only then did they manage to stop the mad slaughter of the locusts. Afterwards, the 100 schools of thought sent reinforcements, and Begonia rushed over as well. They busied themselves for most of the night before cleaning up all the locusts in the city. Their corpses piled up like mountains. Begonia maintained a cold and distant relationship with Li Qingshan. She began rebuilding the formations, so she definitely could not leave as she pleased. Li Qingshan gazed at the eastern sky that was about to brighten. He could not help but grind his teeth in hatred. He should not have spent the night like this. He decided to return to the Chain Mountains first and get little and to use the Buddha slaying sword to cut down the damned clones of the soaring Locust King. However, he was stopped by Qian Rongji again. He said impatiently, "What do you want? Hurry up and say it." Chapter 1001. The morning light landed on Qian Rongji's white clothes. She had given up on her arts of charm a long time ago, but she possessed a brand new luster that surpassed anything in the past. "What do you want to do?" Li Qingshan was rather surprised. "What do you think I can do?" Qian Rongji answered with a question. No matter what she did, she always had a clear objective, but right now, she felt rather lost. She just wanted to see him, but she had no idea why. "Do you know what kind of opportunity you've wasted? Why don't you keep it simple and tell me what you want?" Li Qingshan said. "I don't lack this opportunity. If you turn me down, then forget I said anything," Qian Rongji said. "You want to see her, but she might not want to see you. Then please tell her that whether she wants to see me or not, we're even now." Li Qingshan glanced at Qian Rongji deeply and nodded. "All right, I'll tell her. Thank you. I'll wait for her at the 100 schools of thought. I'll help you watch over your woman as well." In order to prevent the soaring Locust King from making a comeback again, she had to remain in the Clear River Prefecture for a while and wait for the construction of the new protective formation to be completed. "Since you've said that, don't blame me for holding you accountable if anything happens to her." With that, Li Qingshan took off, returning to the Chain Mountains and the Qing Xiao dwelling. Little An was still puzzled over how he had returned so quickly, so he listened to Li Qingshan explain what had happened. The soaring Locust King is the cream of the crop both in terms of strength and strategy. It's no wonder the locust plague has lasted for so long. "I'll definitely kill him." Li Qingshan's anger had yet to subside. His killing intent overflowed. His hatred towards the soaring Locust King had almost surpassed his hatred towards the Dragon King of the Sea. Although the Dragon King of the Sea had killed him once, it was only a regular battle between cultivators. He did not have to be so disgusting. "Father, I'll help you. Out." As soon as the little phoenix called out, he was bitten viciously by the skeleton demon again. His feathers ruffled. "Brat, let's talk after you pass the trial." Li Qingshan smiled, before saying to little An, "Help me vent my anger first. Kill this demon commander clone of his, then kill all of his clones. I'll show him just how powerful I am." He summoned the demon-suppressing pagoda and said to the flying locust demon marshal, "How is it? You lost again, right? Fight me." Li Qingshan, consider yourself lucky this time. Next time, you might not be so lucky. The soaring Locust King replied immediately, his tone full of threat. "Cut the crap, your time of death has come." "Death? You killed one of my doppelgangers, but I still have thousands and thousands of doppelgangers. One day, I'll eat you alive, bite by bite." The soaring Locust King laughed maniacally. Little Anne's sword pierced through the body of the flying locust demon marshal. Legend has it that in order to deliver all living beings from suffering, Buddha incarnated himself into billions of forms. He was both 10,001. And this sword was the Buddha slaying sword. Even if it could slay 10,000, it could also slay one. In an instant, tens of thousands of miles away, an identical sword scar appeared on the back of the soaring Locust King. A dense aura of death lingered on it, not only preventing the wound from healing, it was also rapidly spreading in all directions. "What sword is this?" The soaring Locust King was shocked and furious. In the past, even if his clone was reduced to ashes, it wouldn't be able to harm a single hair on his body. Now, not only was his main body injured, it was also quite serious. The sword that killed you. Do you really think that I can't do anything to you just because you have so many avatars? Li Qingshan laughed heartily, venting his anger. After Little and assassinated the Flying Locust Demon Marshal, he attacked again and again, killing the Flying Locust Demon Generals one by one. The Soaring Locust King's original body was riddled with wounds. He gritted his teeth and said, Li Qingshan, consider yourself ruthless. Let's wait and see. The Flying Locust clones that were entangled in chains immediately stopped moving. He cut off his connection with these clones. Little and put down the Buddha-slaying sword. What a pity. It would be great if I could kill him like this, Li Qingshan said. However, he knew that he was thinking too much. Even if he stabbed the Soaring Locust King's main body with a sword, it would be difficult to take his life. There will be a chance. The sword wounds on his body won't recover so quickly. I can try to divine his location. However, Little and tried to divine, but the result was very vague. Her divination technique could no longer keep up with her current cultivation, and the other party's realm was also there. There's no rush. I'll kill him sooner or later. Li Qingshan left some locusts for Ru Xin to use as experimental subjects, and gave the rest to Little and to refine. Although the locusts were weak, their numbers were too large. They piled up into small mountains in the Azura field. Although the number of locusts in the second locust plague was only a tenth of the first, the number of people who lost their lives to the locusts was close to 1 million. Li Qingshan also collected these locusts' corpses, which was equivalent to indirectly becoming Little An's resources. Their value was no less than the first locust plague. Although it was a little strange, Li Qingshan was not that unreasonable. On the other hand, Little An put her palms together and silently chanted for a while. Only then did she wave the Samdi flames of white bone and devour the mountains of corpses. For the current her, this was a timely rain. After passing through 3 heavenly tribulations, other than the Buddha-slaying sword that had been improved, the skull prayer beads and Bloodsea banner that should have become stronger were in a half-useless state. It was just right to use this sum of resources to repair them. Only then could her strength reach its peak. However, she made a rough estimate. Although this amount of resources could be said to be vast, she was afraid that she could only repair one of the white bone treasures to a perfect state. After thinking for a while, she decided to start with the skull prayer beads. The Bloodsea banner could form a space of its own and trap enemies within it. However, its functions overlapped with the Azura field, so it was not as practical as the skeleton demon formation formed by the skull prayer beads. Thus, with a wave of his hand, the skull prayer beads scattered and transformed into skulls in mid-air. They spun around and cackled strangely. The skeleton devil that was fighting with the small phoenix also transformed into a skull and entered the skull prayer beads. However, other than it, the other skulls all had some cracks on them. Some had broken horns, while others had broken teeth. The Buddha-slaying sword led the way, and the Samdi flames of white bone soared up. The skulls took in large gulps, and the cracks slowly healed. The little phoenix retreated to the bottom of the mountain and gazed at the blazing Samdi flames of white bone, instinctively feeling fear. Very soon, Daddy will take you out to play. Li Qingshan patted the little phoenix's shoulder and also arrived in a corner of the dwelling, beginning to cultivate. He was not practicing the 9 transformations of the demonic and divine, but the demon suppression statuary. The 9 transformations of the demonic and divine had reached a new bottleneck. It would be difficult for him to break through again in a short amount of time, but the demon suppression statuary was a new fortuitous encounter. After becoming a demon king, his demonic nature had strengthened a step further, laying down a firm foundation for tempering his demon heart. Moreover, he still possessed the demon hearts of many demon kings as resources. Everything was ready. Although he only knew the first 8 layers of the demon suppression statuary, as the peak cultivation method of the Chan monastery of Deva-Nga, as long as he could master the first 8 layers, it would be enough for him to reach the realm of Demon King. Chapter 1002. In the pitch-black belly of the mountain, demon chi surged below, while bonefire surged above. The demon chi contained endless malice, while the bonfire contained countless wailing faces. It was quite the site of evil and demonic cultivation. The little phoenix turned back into human form and stared at this blankly. Suddenly, he felt an urge to go home. The outside world was far too dangerous, and the two people beside him were even more dangerous among dangerous people. If it were not for the fact that they did evil unintentionally, the damage they could cause in the human world would definitely be no less than the soaring Locust King. He shook his head forcefully. If he could be frightened by something like this, then what was the point of leaving Fire Melt Mountain? He would be better off staying in the Phoenix's nest for the rest of his life before beginning a new round of trials. The content of the trials was to use his own willpower to resist the terrifying mental pressure. All of the skull prayer beads were repaired. The skulls began to spit out psalmody flames of white bone instead. The roaring flames constantly condensed, contracted, and collapsed, condensing into a new skull prayer bead. Li Qingshan stood right below. His robust body was enveloped by demon chi, like a demon suppression tower. Suddenly, he began to move, constantly changing his posture and figure. He moved extremely slowly, pulling in the surging demon chi. With every movement, he would leave behind an afterimage. Just now, it had dispersed. It was the appearance of the demon suppression statues, but upon closer inspection, they seemed slightly different. It lacked the painful struggle of the demon suppression statues, but there was a sense of recklessness and wildness. The former was constantly suppressing and controlling himself, while the latter was releasing everything and doing whatever he wanted. He followed the normal order at first, going from the first to the 8th, and then from the 8th to the 1st. After repeating this over 1,000 times, his entire body shuddered with demon chi and completely messed up the order. He jumped from the 1st to the 7th, and then back to the 4th. His movements became more and more sluggish, but the little phoenix felt an even greater pressure. He resisted the urge to retreat, gritting his teeth and enduring silently. Gradually, Li Qingshan's movements became smoother and smoother, reaching a level where he could move them freely. However, his brows were still tightly furrowed. He felt that something was off. After a moment of thought, his demon suppression statuary had deviated from the normal direction. The first layer should have been initial remorse of the demon heart, but what he comprehended was remorseless demon heart. At that time, he had already condensed the deep sea pearl and reached the second heavenly tribulation realm, so he didn't feel any changes. But when he tried to use the demon suppression statuary to break through a major realm, he immediately felt the immense difficulty. It wasn't easy to break away from the mold of the predecessors and carve out a path of one's own. The cultivation method left behind by the predecessors could not be understood however you wanted. Instead, you had to try your best to match the intentions of the predecessors in order to master the cultivation method. Little Un's changes to the path of white bone and great beauty allowed Buddhism and the demonic to coexist, and there was even a possibility that it suited the white bone bodhisattva's intentions. After all, the white bone bodhisattva had been a Buddhist powerhouse throughout her long life, and the path of white bone and great beauty was basically built upon her Buddhist cultivation. However, it was impossible for the demon folk who created the demon suppression statuary to have a remorseless demon heart. Otherwise, why the hell would he create a cultivation method? All he had to do was work as a demon folk, an occupation with a very promising future. This was equivalent to an article. Not only did the reader fail to understand the author's intentions, but they even had completely opposing thoughts, so it was very difficult for them to immerse themselves in it. All they could do was give up on reading it and read it through reluctantly, but they would not be able to understand its essence. The more powerful the cultivation method was, the more difficult the article would be. If they wanted to understand its essence, they would need greater ability to comprehend, or they would be able to connect with the author. The cultivation community was full of things like this. A minor cultivator with mediocre ability to comprehend, or even mediocre talent, would suddenly soar up after obtaining a powerful cultivation method. This was not just because the cultivation method was powerful, but because the reader and the author were connected. This was why it was very difficult for future generations to reach the heights of the creator when they practiced a cultivation method. No one's temperament and circumstances were exactly the same. However, Li Qingshan did not possess Little An's ability to comprehend the demon suppression statuary forcefully. It was impossible for him to change his mood and connect with the demon folk, much less give up on the demon suppression statuary. All he could do was reach a special bottleneck. He took out the Azura field again and stepped into it, arriving in an even vaster world. He bellowed out, "Demon suppression!" Swish! Chains of demon suppression flew out, wrapping around him firmly. Still not enough. Boom! The demon suppression tower descended from above, pressing down on him and trapping him. He was basically immobilized. The first thing the demon suppression statuary suppressed was his inner demons. What allowed him to break free from the chains and smash through the tower was not strength or abilities, but the resolve in his heart. Only true resolve could assist him in practicing the demon suppression statuary. Time passed by in a hurry. Little An's skull prayer beads condensed one by one. He had already surpassed his original number, advancing towards a higher realm of cultivation. The demon suppression tower stood on the blood-red ground like a lone mountain, trembling gently and rumbling. Under the restraints of the chains, Li Qingshan sweated profusely as he danced about with everything he had. He gritted his teeth. His face was twisted, and his movements did not change at all, but the resolve he sought never arrived. Initial remorse of the demon heart, initial remorse of the demon heart, initial remorse of the demon heart. He repeated inside before finally cursing, "Remorse my ass." He did not feel like he needed to feel remorse. This was not because he was particularly powerful, but because he was not born as a demon folk. He possessed normal human nature in the first place, so he did not need to struggle against his innate instincts like the demon folk. After calming down and thinking about it, this kind of struggle was basically a form of betrayal. It was just like how the fire devourers insisted on switching to a water cultivation method. Even he could not help but admire them. "My master is also a human. Not only is his bloodline purer than mine, but his human nature is probably much better too. How did he do it?" Li Qingshan muttered to himself. He knew the unraging monk had used the demon suppression statuary to break through the third heavenly tribulation, which left him very confused. Qingshan, the unraging monk, is devoted to Buddhism, but he also abhors evil. Afterwards, he lost himself in the slaughter. By the time he came to his senses, his hatred was no longer limited to external enemies, but also his murderous and evil self. He obviously needs to feel remorse for this. Little An's voice suddenly rang out. "I see. Then I'm done for." Li Qingshan grinned. The demon folk wanted to possess human nature, while the unraging monk wanted to become an eminent monk of great virtue. Both of them had higher pursuits, which was why they regretted the various demonic thoughts in their hearts. However, he was only a mortal. He had love and hate, emotions and desires. Good and evil were one, both divine and demonic. Although he liked to do whatever he wanted, he had his own set of principles. Everything he had done in his life could not be described as having a clear conscience, but he believed he had done his best. He felt good about himself, which was why he had no regrets. But if he had no regrets, why did he need to suppress demons? Chapter 1003. Trapped in one's own web. Li Qingshan immediately thought of this phrase. Then, he sat under the demon suppression tower and pondered for 3 days and 3 nights, but he still could not come up with a solution. Little An was also helpless. Unless he abandoned the demon suppression statuary and cultivated in a different cultivation method, how could he hope for the same result if he planted a different seed? On the 4th day, the demon suppression chains clanked. Li Qingshan stood up and said impatiently, "Forget it. Can't I break through and become a demon king if I can't comprehend the demon suppression statuary?" Li Qingshan took out a handful of demon hearts. These demon hearts were crystal clear and contained boundless demonic energy. They were the spoils of war from wiping out the demons in southern border, the Demon King's heart. The demonic nature contained in these Demon King's hearts were all different, but they did not lack malice or slaughter. He wanted to extract the portion of power that was compatible with his demon heart and then prove his Tao through strength, forcefully breaking through to the Demon King realm. He waved his hand, and the demon hearts of various shapes and colors floated around him, glowing with a faint demonic light. Little and had already completely erased their spirituality, so he did not have to worry about any backlash. The only thing he had to worry about was cultivation deviation, and Li Qingshan was about to. As the demon hearts lit up, the demon suppression tower grew 10 times larger, like a towering mountain, suppressing all demonic energy. Li Qingshan's shoulders sank as he felt the pressure increase, but he stood there steadily, not moving at all. With his ox demon strength, how could he be suppressed by a demon suppression tower? He opened his mouth and inhaled. Streams of demonic energy surged out of the demon hearts and surged into his mouth, rampaging through his body like a surging flood. If he was just a demon general, his body would have exploded and he would have died. How could proving one's Tao through strength be so fun? However, as a demon king, his body was extremely tough, like the sturdiest dam. The torrent of demonic energy could only surge within it, and the demonic chi on his body continued to rise, becoming stronger and stronger. The demon suppression chains grew thicker and thicker, locking down all the joints in his body firmly, almost drowning his figure. Li Qingshan did not care. As he sucked in large mouthfuls of demonic energy, he forcefully circulated the demon suppression statuary and guided the surging demonic energy into his demonic heart. Kacha. His demon heart shone brilliantly, but cracks appeared on it. Although his body was strong, his demon heart wasn't that strong. It was unable to withstand this immense force and was about to explode. Spirit turtle suppresses the seas. Li Qingshan remained unmoved. He shouted in a low voice. The figure of the spirit turtle appeared above the demon heart and shone with faint light. It easily suppressed the demon heart, using external force to forcefully maintain the stability of the demon heart. He didn't care whether he was aware of it or not. He just wanted to force himself on her, piling up the quantity to cause a qualitative change. Ordinary cultivators wouldn't dare to do this. However, he was best at using force, and he had the capital to do so. The demonic energy surges. The light armor on Li Qingshan's body spreads continuously, covering his entire body. His body turned into a suit of heavy armor again. Other than the bull's horns on the armor and the tiger's head on the breastplate, it had completely changed its appearance. There was a hideous ghost face on the visor. It constantly twisted and changed, making various expressions. As the demonic energy constantly surged in, the armor became even heavier. In the end, it no longer seemed like armor, but more like a mecha from a sci-fi movie. It collided with the chains of demon suppression, producing the sound of metal grinding against metal. If there's a problem that power can't resolve, then it must be because your power isn't great enough. This saying might not have been applicable on Earth in his past life. The laws of birth, death, sickness, and death could not be resisted no matter how much power or wealth one possessed. However, it was the truth in this world of cultivators. As long as they were powerful enough, the laws of the world could still be trampled underfoot. Right now, Li Qingshan was using his own strength as a foundation to cultivate in a way that others would never even dare to imagine. The cracks on the demon heart were already as dense as a spider's web, completely maintained by external force. However, he continued to devour the demonic energy, making the cracks even denser, splitting the demon heart into even finer grains of sand. As his demon chi grew slightly stronger, the pressure from the demon suppression tower and the restraints from the chains of demon suppression grew slightly stronger, turning into a dead knot. However, while the demonic nature of the enemy was stronger, the demon suppression statuary would be even more powerful. Even if the unraging monk tossed out the demon suppression tower, he would not be able to suppress demon god Chengqi. Everything had a limit. Using the demon king's heart as a foundation, Li Qingshan pushed the demon suppression statuary to such an extreme very soon. A crack suddenly appeared on the towering demon suppression tower. He snickered and continued to refine the demonic energy. The crack spread across the entire tower very soon. By now, Li Qingshan had already turned into an armored monster over 100 meters tall. He no longer cared about the appearance of the demon suppression statue. He dragged the heavy chains of demon suppression behind him and slammed the demon suppression tower with his fists. The chains of demon suppression produced the sound of metal being stretched and twisted. Break. Li Qingshan shuddered and stretched his arms as hard as he could. The chains of demon suppression shattered inch by inch, and he slammed into the tower. With a great rumble, the demon suppression tower collapsed loudly, turning back into surging demon chi and surging back. His demonified body swelled up further, reaching several hundred meters in length. Just now, it stopped. The demon heart that had always been on the verge of shattering began to condense again, turning into the heart of a demon king. The huge set of demonic armor was wrapped in chains, but they were no longer restraints, but weapons. A straight horn protruded from the center of the helmet, pointing diagonally at the sky. It happened to be the shape of the demon suppression tower. Li Qingshan sensed the brand new power in his body and felt delighted inside. All butterflies were trapped in their own cocoons, so why would they have to worry about not being able to break free? There were still various problems that needed to be resolved urgently, such as the lack of tempering of his power, which made him extremely clumsy and heavy after demonification, or the fact that he was in a berserk state after demonification, or the fact that the quality of his demon heart was much worse without the baptism of the heavenly tribulation. However, a demon king was a demon king. All of these problems could be resolved slowly. He was confident that he could control whatever state he was in. That was enough. With a thought, Li Qingshan turned into a demonic and divine body that stood over 700 meters tall again, donning a set of dark red demonic armor. Checking it out, he did not expect it to fit him quite well. In the end, he reverted to his human form and dispelled his devilization. However, he discovered that his entire body was covered in demonic runes and demonic energy. If he wandered about outside, other cultivators would probably be able to discover a great demon king like him from 50 kilometers away. With his current appearance, he definitely could not enter the Chan monastery of Deva Nga. Fortunately, he had the spirit turtle's method of sea suppression. Not only did it suppress the demon chi, but it even purged the demonic glyphs. Li Qingshan arrived outside the Azura field and handed the demon hearts that had yet to be used up to little, and spiritual medicines and spiritual stones were basically useless to her, but demon hearts and demon folk grew together. They were not condensed from pure power like golden cores. Instead, they were rather similar to Buddhist cultivators' arus. She tossed these demon hearts into the blood sea banner and slowly melted them away. Time flew by. Little and continued refining the skull prayer beads, while Li Qingshan began tempering the demon hearts. In the blink of an eye, a few months had passed. On this day, a woman in red arrived outside Qing Xiao's dwelling and probed, "Qingshan? Qiongji." Chapter 1004. Li Qingshan rejoiced inside. He immediately stopped cultivating and stood up. Right when he was about to leave, he sensed another aura. An armored man stood on the mountain opposite Qing Xiao's dwelling. He seemed to be in his 30s or 40s, and he was at the second heavenly tribulation. He had a square face with thick eyebrows, large eyes, and a high nose bridge. He seemed rather masculine. "Junior sister, is this really his dwelling? Senior brother Yu, do you think I'd even remember something like that?" Han Qiongji said. "You've misunderstood, junior sister. I don't think the Chain Mountains are some famed mountain with abundant spiritual chi. It doesn't seem to match the White Hawk commander's identity, which is why I have this question. Not to mention, it's been so many years, so it's nothing strange even if you remember incorrectly," senior brother Yu said. "How can I remember incorrectly? When he built this dwelling, he wasn't even some White Hawk commander yet." Han Qiongji became nostalgic, but she was also rather disappointed. "Sigh, looks like he's not in the dwelling. Junior sister, don't blame me for being rude. Since his return to the Green Province, he should have come to see you as soon as possible. Why did he make you come find him instead?" This was the first time senior brother Yu had seen Han Qiongji dress up so meticulously in all these years. She was radiant, and he could not help but sigh inside. "He saw Thierry and knows I'm in secluded cultivation," Han Qiongji explained. "If it were me, I'd definitely wait at the entrance for you to emerge. That's the only way I can demonstrate my sincerity," senior brother Yu smiled. If you keep talking nonsense with me, I'll get him to beat you up, Han Cheongji said in exasperation. Haha, that's exactly what I wanted. I've heard you mention it for so many years. I've wanted to compete with this renowned Li Qingshan a long time ago. Senior brother Yu laughed aloud, raring to go. There's no need for a competition. Go find a locust plague yourself. You'll be impressive if you survive. After leaving the Green Province for so many years, Li Qingshan swept through the locust plague as soon as he returned, saving the prefectural city of Clear River. His reputation flourished once again, and Han Cheongji felt proud too. Junior sister, you're making things difficult for me. I don't even have the Azura field. How can I deal with so many locusts? Senior apprentice brother Yu explained. He was extremely envious of Li Qingshan. The Azura field was a supreme treasure of the military, and not only was it extremely beneficial to one's cultivation, it also had many other miraculous uses. In all of Qing province, there was only one great general king, and now there was a second one. Cut the crap. If you don't dare, then you don't dare. Han Cheongji turned around and was about to leave when the stone door suddenly opened. She turned around and saw the familiar figure and smiling face. Her heart skipped a beat and she couldn't say a single word. Li Qingshan's heart was also not calm. Seeing her fiery red dress, he recalled the past and arrived in front of her in one step. He embraced her and said apologetically, "I've made you wait for a long time." "It's okay." Han Cheongji shook her head, and tears immediately welled up in her eyes. She raised her head and touched Li Qingshan's cheek as if she was confirming that this was not a dream. "It's good that you've returned alive. I've always been worried that you'd been killed in the south. Don't you know how powerful your husband is? Only I kill people. Why would anyone want to kill me?" Li Qingshan stuck out his chest. Seeing how happy and excited she was, his heart was filled with endless tenderness. "Stop bragging." Han Cheongji's voice was gentle. Senior apprentice brother Yu blinked. He even began to doubt whether this was the little junior sister he knew. "Cheongji, who is this fellow?" Li Qingshan glanced at senior apprentice brother Yu and asked Han Cheongji. "My name is Yu Bing. I've long heard of fellow Li's name, so I've come to pay my respects." Yu Bing leaped onto the cliff and looked at Li Qingshan from head to toe. Although he could not sense any aura from Li Qingshan and could not determine his cultivation, he could feel a sense of power from Li Qingshan. It was as heavy as a mountain, giving off an unshakable feeling. He praised Li Qingshan in his heart. To be able to make little junior sister pay so much attention to him, he was indeed extraordinary. Don't listen to his nonsense. This is my senior apprentice brother. Master sent him to escort me. Han Cheongji hugged Li Qingshan's arm and introduced him. Fellow Li Qingshan, as soon as you returned to Qingju, you dealt a heavy blow to the Flying Locust King. It's really admirable. However, the Flying Locust King's spies are everywhere, so you have to be careful. Otherwise, I don't want to spoil the fun. Thank you, fellow Yu. Li Qingshan cupped his hands and said, "Cheongji, you've become a disciple. May I know who your master is?" "The great General King, Yu Wuyang." His also senior apprentice brother Yu's biological father, Han Cheongji emphasized the last four words. The great General King. Li Qingshan naturally remembered this Qingzhou's #1 militarist. He said to Yu Bing, "I didn't expect fellow Yu's family to have such a long history. My apologies for not recognizing you. I'm ashamed." Yu Bing blushed slightly and said to Han Cheongji, "Junior apprentice sister, you're too merciless with your words. Who asked you to spout nonsense just now? It's already good enough that I didn't beat you up." Han Cheongji said. "What's there to be ashamed about?" Li Qingshan was a little confused. To have such a good father, one should feel proud. Fellow Li Qingshan is of ordinary birth, but you relied on your own ability to fight against the locust plague. Your name is known throughout Qingju. I've been under the shadow of my family for many years. Even though I have a body of cultivation, I still have to use my father's name. How can I not feel ashamed?" Li Qingshan had a better impression of this Yu Bing. Before he could say anything, a cheer came from behind. "Well said. I, Li Fengyuan, will make a name for myself. I will not rely on my father's name. Little Phoenix walked out of the cave and said in high spirits. Yu Bing suddenly felt a strong aura coming towards him. It seemed to be demonic aura, but it was different. Han Qiongji keenly noticed Li Fengyuan's surname. She asked, "Your father is?" Li Qingshan. Little Phoenix said proudly. Li Qingshan. Han Qiongji's face darkened. She gritted her teeth and said, "I've tolerated your nonsense outside. But now you've even brought my son back. Li Qingshan, what do you want?" Qiongji, don't misunderstand. He's not my biological son. He's my godson. Godson. Li Qingshan hurriedly explained. The biological one hasn't been born yet. Really? Han Qiongji said doubtfully. Of course it's true. Brat, quickly transform into your original form. Li Qingshan kicked the little phoenix off the cliff. With a phoenix's cry, the phoenix spread its wings and flew around the valley, shining with resplendent light. This is a phoenix. Yu Bing was dumbfounded. You see, how can I give birth to a bird? Who can say for sure? Even if this isn't, there might be more outside. Han Qiongji said. You're thinking too much. If there is, it's with you. Li Qingshan laughed. A woman's intuition was really scary. Yu Bing stared at Little Phoenix. This wasn't the key to the matter, right? That was a legendary phoenix. Is little and inside. Han Qiongji tilted her head and looked at the cave's stone door. She's cultivating in seclusion. She'll only come out after a while. Why don't we go to the prefecture and revisit the old place? Li Qingshan suggested. It wasn't convenient for others to see the scene of little and cultivating. Come to my house. My master wants to see you. Han Qiongji said. The great general king is in the Clear River prefecture, just to see me. Chapter 1005. At noon, below the tall gate in front of the estate of Han. In the past, I fought my way in for a marriage proposal. Li Qingshan smiled. Yeah. Before I knew it, so many years have already passed, said Han Qiongji. Really? I've never heard my junior sister mention that. Fellow, you're so outstanding. Does General Han still have some dissatisfaction? Yu Bing asked. What can I do? The military just likes fighting and killing. You can treat it as a special treatment. Li Qingshan shrugged. Don't you like it? Han Qiongji asked. If I didn't like it, why would I fight my way in? I can't help but fight again right now. This time, I don't need your help. I alone am enough to fight my way to father-in-law Han. Even if you want to fight, there's no one to fight for you. As they said that, the door opened, and Han Tiri came out to receive them. Li Qingshan made his way up the stairs and entered the fortress-like estate of Han. Without the sight of soldiers and formations, it actually seemed a little cold and cheerless. He followed the path in his memory and arrived in the inner hall of the estate. Before he had even entered, he heard the unraging monk's furious roar. Damned disciple, you tricked your junior brother into coming back, saying something along the lines of perhaps I'll be here before you. Just how long has it been? Why don't you get your ass in here? It had to be mentioned that the unraging monk was rather terrifying when he became angry. Yu Bing and Han Qiongji were both taken aback. They looked at Li Qingshan in worry. The person they could not afford to provoke the least in the cultivation community was their master. If they made their master so angry, the disciple would probably suffer. Enough, enough. You're lucky that I've returned. Who knows how many benefits the King of Southern Yu has promised me, insisting that I remain in the King of Yu's estate as an honored guest. If it weren't for your sake, I would be living happily in the Mist Province. Li Qingshan entered the hall without any care. The unraging monk was the same as before, dressed in shabby monk robes and sitting there with his chest bared, staring at him furiously. A dignified old man sat beside the unraging monk. His greyish-white hair was combed meticulously, and his dignified, square face bore some resemblance to Yu Bing. It went without saying that he was the great general, Wang Yu Wuyang. Yu Bing looked at Li Qingshan in shock. Although he was the son of the great general lord, if he dared to disrespect his elders, he would definitely be beaten to death. Even now, it was still the same. The great general lord was somewhat displeased. His pupils constricted slightly as the killing intent of a peak expert of the military school was released. Immediately, there was a powerful pressure. The pressure of the two great cultivators filled the hall like the mountains and the seas. Han Anjuan held his breath. Han Qiongji and Yu Bing couldn't even bow if they wanted to. Li Qingshan's expression didn't change in the slightest. He stepped forward and cupped his fists. Li Qingshan greets master, great general lord, and father-in-law Han. Not bad. A sliver of surprise flashed through Yu Wuyang's eyes. Even a great cultivator might not be able to remain so composed under his pressure. Of course. Li Qingshan smiled. The king of southern Yu wants you to remain in the Mist province. The unraging monk asked. This was a matter of principle. The Green province and the Mist province were already at daggers drawn. If it were not for the demon plague and locust plague, they would have fought to the bitter end already. Master, you've started putting on an act too. Don't you know what the king of southern Yu's attitude is like? Li Qingshan smiled. It's just some petty tricks to drive a wedge between us. You damned disciple, answer me honestly whatever I ask you. Where's one will? The unraging monk asked. She's still in secluded cultivation. She'll emerge in the next few days. By then, she'll obviously report to the Chan monastery of Devarenjie, said Li Qingshan. That's good. Only then did the unraging monk feel relieved. The news of Li Qingshan purging the locust plague had reached the Chan monastery of Devarenjie, but what the dauntless monk cared about the most was Little An's whereabouts. He heard that she was not with Li Qingshan, so he was afraid something might happen to her. However, after waiting for a while, Li Qingshan had no intentions of reporting to the Chan monastery of Devarenjie. The great general king just happened to be visiting the unraging monk, so they came to the Clear River prefecture together. Master, you sure are biased. So much for being your direct disciple. Li Qingshan shook his head. Who told you not to be a monk? We Buddhists only take care of our own. The unraging monk smiled. He had never worried that Li Qingshan would betray the Chan monastery of Devarenjie, just like how he had never expected Li Qingshan to be loyal to the Chan monastery of Devarenjie. Just now, he had only flown into a rage to teach him a lesson. Sure enough, he failed to scare him. Master, you seem to have said some impressive truth. What happened to delivering everyone from suffering? Drunken words. Drunken words. Kid, you're a scourge no matter where you go. If you stay in the Mist province, you'll be a great help to the Green province. Oh right, you still owe me a demonic treasure. Li Qingshan suddenly recalled the unraging monk's promise. Is that why you've returned? That's not it. I'm known as the king of savages in the south. What treasures do I lack? Do I really lack something like that? What a king of savages. Then I won't be giving it to you. We've already agreed on it, so how can I not give it to you? Hand it over. Li Qingshan grabbed the unraging monk by the collar. Damned disciple, let go of me. It left the other disciples of the school of the military in a daze. There were not a lot of people in the entire cultivation community who treated each other with such impoliteness. However, they could tell that the master and disciple actually got along very well. Yu Bing secretly glanced at Yu Wuyang. This was much better than his biological son. Yu Wuyang glanced at him, and cold light seemed to flash through his eyes. Yu Bing shrunk back and performed a military salute. He said firmly, Great General King, fortunately, Yu Bing has accomplished his mission. I've delivered my junior sister safely and invited Commander Li over. Yu Wuyang nodded slightly before coughing gently again. The unraging monk said, Damned disciple, fellow Yu has something to ask you. You need to answer him honestly. Han Qiongji also shot him a pleading gaze. She was afraid that he would lose his temper and anger her master, which would be troublesome for her. Li Qingshan let go of the unraging monk's collar and said sternly, Qiongji's master is my senior. Please feel free to ask me anything, Great General King. I will definitely tell you everything I know. Where did you get your Azura field from? Yu Wuyang cut right to the chase. The Azura field was not a regular arcane treasure. Refining a single one would take up enough resources and effort. It was equivalent to refining 10 regular arcane treasures, so it held extremely special significance to the school of the military. The Banyan Tree King gave it to me, Li Qingshan said calmly. He gave it to you? Why? Yu Wuyang was doubtful. Although the Banyan Tree King was known for his gentleness and magnanimity, it was impossible for him to give away a supreme treasure like that so easily, no matter how generous he was. Is there anything strange about friends giving each other gifts? Li Qingshan said like it was obvious. You're talking about friends? Did I hear you wrong? Yu Wuyang could not help but reveal a strange expression on his solemn, squarish face. What kind of existence was the Banyan Tree King? He was originally one of the 10 demon kings renowned throughout the 9 provinces. Now that he had refined the Mist Province cauldron, he had even become the god of the Mist Province. Even Yu Wuyang was not confident that he could stand on equal footing with him, yet a measly White Hawk commander was actually bold enough to call himself the Banyan Tree King's friend. Was that not the greatest joke in the world? Chapter 1006. If you don't believe me, you're welcome to ask the Banyan Tree King. It's just an azura field. Is there a need to make such a fuss? Li Qingshan said helplessly. However, apart from Han Qiongji, everyone present was doubtful. You want me to go to the Mist Province? Yu Wuyang was already certain that Li Qingshan was lying. It was impossible for them to ask the Banyan Tree King for proof. There's no need for that. Li Qingshan considered it and took out the fruit of wisdom from his Sumeru ring. He passed it to Han Qiongji and said, "Eat it and give me the seed." This is. Han Qiongji was taken aback. She gazed at the glowing fruit in her hand. She could tell with a single glance that it was anything but ordinary. It seemed to contain the endless mysteries of nature, deeply drawing her attention. This is a banyan fruit. You can treat it as my gift. I'm sorry for making you wait for so many years, Li Qingshan said sincerely. Before Han Anjuan and Yu Bing could even make sense of the situation, the great General King and the unraging monk stood up at the same time and said together, "The fruit of wisdom." They could not be blamed for being so surprised. The fruit of wisdom was renowned across the 9 provinces. As a matter of fact, some people even regarded it as the greatest spiritual fruit in the world. Regular spiritual fruits, no matter how powerful their intelligence was, could only be used as resources to save some time on cultivation. The more precious spiritual fruits could increase the aptitude of cultivators, but they were only used to refine the soul and strengthen the body. However, the fruit of wisdom could drastically increase a cultivator's ability to comprehend. Countless cultivators in the world encountered bottlenecks during their cultivation, becoming stuck at various cultivation realms. Most of them did so because their ability to comprehend was insufficient. No matter how many resources they possessed, how powerful their bodies were, or how pure their souls were, it was useless. This was the value of the fruit of wisdom. Even a great cultivator like Yu Wuyang would be interested. No one would complain about their ability to comprehend being too low. Damned disciple, where did you get this fruit of wisdom from? The unraging monk asked in surprise. I stole it, Li Qingshan said. What? The unraging monk was stunned. He felt like his brain was a little lacking. Stealing something from the Banyan Tree King, and it was the fruit of wisdom no less. Probably even the imperial clan of the Dragon Province would not be able to do it. Master, aren't you talking nonsense? Of course, it was given to me by the Banyan Tree King. Li Qingshan shook his head. The unraging monk was speechless. He had learnt from Duoj that Li Qingshan's relationship with the Banyan Tree King was anything but ordinary. There was a branch of the Banyan Tree King on Savage Mountain, but there were plenty of Banyan Tree King branches. Just how many of them could obtain the fruit of wisdom? Yu Wuyang furrowed his brows, and his heart wavered. Was the Sharaba really a gift from the Banyan Tree King? Even his own son isn't so close to him. Yu Bing sighed before receiving another glare from Yu Wuyang. He thought, I didn't think Li Qingshan would actually be so generous. Junior sister really hasn't waited all these years for nothing. So much for acting like a tomboy, but her eye for men really is admirable. Qingshan, I appreciate your kindness, but I can't accept something so precious. You should eat it instead. Han Qiongji returned to her senses and returned the fruit of wisdom to Li Qingshan. Why do we have to keep it to ourselves? And, I've already eaten one, so it's useless even if I eat another. Your one is much better than mine. It was condensed by the Banyan Tree King after he became the god of the Mist Province. It contains a fragment of the Mist Province cauldron. He said it has other wondrous uses. Yu Wuyang's eyes narrowed, and he stared at the fruit of wisdom deeply. It was no wonder he felt like it contained the laws of the world. The fruit of wisdom was probably worth even more than the Sharaba field. It was enough to change the trajectory of a cultivator's life. If the person who received the fruit of wisdom were not Han Qiongji, he might even be tempted to take it by force. Han Qiongji did not turn it down anymore. Actually, when she heard that Li Qingshan had swept through the locust plague, she felt both glorious and rather dejected. Originally, she thought she could get a little closer to him after all these years of painstaking cultivation, but after so many years, she discovered that the distance between them was growing larger and larger, almost beyond her reach. It was exactly like Han Anjuan's prophecy in the past. She looked at Li Qingshan and said quietly, "With this fruit of wisdom, I can get a little closer to you. Eat it and give the seed to me. I'll get the Banyan Tree King to confront them," Li Qingshan said to Han Qiongji. "There's no need. Qiongji, the fruit of wisdom is extraordinarily valuable. Take some time and slowly refine it," Yu Wuyang said. "Yes, Master," Han Qiongji said. "So, the great General Lord is willing to believe me?" Li Qingshan smiled. "Even if the Banyan Tree King gave you the Sharaba, where did the Banyan Tree King get it from?" Yu Wuyang asked. "You'll have to ask the Banyan Tree King about that. If you don't want to go to the Mist Province, you'll have to wait for a while." Li Qingshan laid out his hands. "Didn't he tell you when he gave it to you?" Yu Wuyang asked. "I think he picked it up from somewhere," Li Qingshan said. "Can you show it to me?" Yu Wuyang asked. "No problem." Li Qingshan took out the Azura field and handed it to Yu Wuyang. I didn't expect you to have grown to such a level. Looks like you've put in a lot of effort." Yu Wuyang fiddled with the Azura field. The blood qi that shrouded it exceeded his expectations. He had no idea how many battles it had experienced. Indeed, Li Qingshan had won several crucial battles in the Azura field. "You can summon Azura commanders now, right? Can you control them?" Yu Wuyang doubted. Azura were much more powerful than regular cultivators. If their cultivations were similar, there was basically no chance of victory. "I can, but I've killed them all. I've only left one that's pleasing to the eye. There's no need to control them." "Who killed them? How did they kill them?" "That'll be troublesome to explain. May I ask what exactly you're trying to do, Great General Lord?" "You might as well just tell me." Li Qingshan had already become rather impatient. "Li Qingshan, don't think I've come to harm you, or I wouldn't have specially called your master. Do you know that every Azura field is different? I suspect that the Azura field in your possession originally belonged to Prince Sai Ching before it was taken away by the North Moon. The North Moon died in the Mist Province, which was why it ended up in the hands of the Banyan Tree King. Back when Prince Sai Ching came to the Rui Commandery, he caused a very great disturbance in order to refine an Azura field. The great General Lord knew everything about this. When the Azura field reappeared in the Clear River Prefecture, he immediately suspected this. I'm not sure about that, but so what? Li Qingshan said. Do you know that Prince Sai Ching has already undergone the third heavenly tribulation and become the third crown prince of Great Xia? The matter of the Azura field will reach his ears very soon. I heard that he has grievances with you in the first place. If he learns that the lost Azura field is in your hands. Chapter 1007. Li Qingshan hated Sai Ching, the son of a bitch, quite a lot, but he found it to be far too troublesome if he came all the way to the Dragon Province for revenge. If he came all the way just to be beaten up, that would be for the best. You're not worried? Yu Wuyang originally thought that even if Li Qingshan did not pale with fright, his face would definitely sink after saying that. His attitude was far too unexpected, or in other words, he had been surprised ever since he met this man. Li Qingshan said, "I'm worried." "How can I not be worried?" He was worried that he wouldn't come. "Master, what do we do now?" Han Qingji asked in worry. So be it if a great cultivator viewed him as an enemy, and he was even a prince of Great Xia. Sai Qing had not been the Marquis of Ruyi for very long, but his brutal nature was deeply rooted in the hearts of the people in the Ruyi commandery. The simplest way is to return it to its owner, or Sai Qing definitely won't just let the matter go. He refined it after all, so it's reasonable. The banyan tree king you mentioned is an enemy of Great Xia right now, so it'll only become a weakness if I mention it. Yu Wuyang pulled a long face. He was still rather unused to Li Qingshan's disrespectful attitude. "I appreciate your kind intentions, General, but it's probably impossible for me to hand over the Azura field for nothing." Li Qingshan shook his head with a smile. "There's another way. Hand the Azura field to me. Tell others that I'm lending it to you, and I'll bear all of Sai Qing's blame." Yu Wuyang patted the Azura field in his hand and revealed his true objective. With his identity as the great General King, he was enough to contend with this crown prince of Great Xia. "You don't have to worry. I, Yu Wuyang, will never take advantage of someone weaker than me. I will give you enough compensation. I've asked your master to come as a witness." If Li Qingshan really was a golden core cultivator, this would be the best solution without a doubt. However, even if it was just to draw Sai Qing over, he would never hand over the Azura field. Not to mention the value of the Azura field to him. It was not something that Yu Wuyang could compensate for. "Is there any other way?" "You'll have to ask your master." Yu Wuyang believed that Li Qingshan would eventually accept this proposal. "What fellow you said might not be a bad way to deal with the problem. If you really don't want to give up on the Azura field, then return to the Chan monastery of Nga," the unraging monk said seriously. "If Sai Qing insists on forcing me to hand over the Azura field, will the Chan monastery of Nga really protect me?" Li Qingshan shook his head. It was possible, but he probably didn't have the face to do so. "I'll protect you," said the unraging monk. "Thank you, master. I don't want to make things difficult for you, and I don't want to rely on others to protect me." The unraging monk's words further confirmed Li Qingshan's guess. The Green Province was not a savage land like the Mist Province. The Great Xia Empire had ruled for 5 millennia, and even if they wavered, it was enough to deter a sect. If the Azura field belonged to him in the first place, then the Chan monastery of Nga would never allow an outsider to come knocking on their door. However, Sai Qing only had 30% of the reason. With his identity as a prince, he could make it 10%. It was impossible for the abbot and the dauntless monk to directly oppose him for his sake. Perhaps they would try to persuade him to hand over the Azura field instead to resolve the matter. "You might as well consider it properly before making your decision," said Yu Wuyang. "There's no need to consider it. If Sai Qing wants to come, then let him come." When Li Qingshan reached there, he suddenly looked back. "Isn't he already here? Speak of the devil and he will appear." The unraging monk and Yu Wuyang both stood up. They also sensed a tremendous aura rapidly approaching the estate of Han. They glanced at Li Qingshan in surprise. He actually possessed such sharp senses. In just a moment, the aura enveloped the sky above the estate of Han, and a cold, dignified voice rang out. "Where is Li Qingshan?" A man in a golden crown and faint, yellow robes embroidered with embroidery gazed at the estate of Han below. His body exuded an air of nobility, which diluted his sinister temperament. Beside him, a woman in white stood with her arms crossed. She held a jade folding fan in her hand, and there was a faint smile on her face. His hair was tied into a simple ponytail. He didn't have the domineering aura of a man, but he had a natural and unrestrained demeanor. "Sai Qing, long time no see." Li Qingshan came to the outside of the hall and paused for a moment. "And Commander Ji Yu." It had been many years since they last met. As expected, she had also gone through 3 heavenly tribulations and was even more elegant than before. "Commander Li, the third prince was looking for you, so I brought him here. You won't blame me, right?" Ji Yu Yangying smiled. How could that be? I can't thank you enough. Li Qingshan smiled and asked, may I know why the third prince is looking for me? Sai Qing saw the unraging monk and Yu Wuyang behind Li Qingshan and suppressed his killing intent. He said bluntly, hand over the Azura field, and we'll write off our grievances, or, if he held his tongue, it would be even more obvious that he was not going to say it. It was a blatant threat. What grievances do we have? Didn't you accept your defeat back then? Li Qingshan turned around and retrieved the Azura field from Yu Wuyang's hands. He tossed it around casually and immediately drew Sai Qing's attention. He blurted out, my Azura field. Wrong. It's my Azura field, Li Qingshan corrected him. Li Qingshan, where did you get this Azura field from? Sai Qing questioned. I picked it up on the side of the road. What's it got to do with you? The ancients once said that it belongs to whoever picks it up. Li Qingshan could not even be bothered to explain. Li Qingshan. Sai Qing gritted his teeth. Fury surged through his chest. Ever since he underwent the third heavenly tribulation and went from a regular prince to the crown prince of the Great Xia, no one dared to speak to him like that anymore. The malice in his eyes intensified. If it were not for the fact that the unraging monk was present, he would have killed him on the spot. I'll give you one last chance. I'll count to 3, and you return the Azura field to me. I can treat it like nothing has happened. 1, 2. Li Qingshan answered with a smile. 3. Third prince, if my disciple has offended you in any way, you can just bear with it. As his master, I've often been bullied by him too. The unraging monk chuckled and patted Li Qingshan's shoulder. Li Qingshan's heart warmed up. The unraging monk was definitely not joking when he said he would protect him. Are you going to shield him, unraging master? Sai Qing asked. Shield him? What shortcomings does my disciple have? Even if he's unruly, arrogant, and ignorant, it's still better than killing the innocent for his own selfish reasons, the unraging monk said. You. Sai Qing's expression changed, and he clenched his fists. However, the Chan monastery of Devarenjie possessed great influence, and they shared weal and woe with the King Chu's estate. It was impossible for him to fall out with them over a single mockery, and even if he did, he probably would not be their opponent. Qing, let's go down. We can talk about it slowly, Jiyu Yangying said to Sai Qing. Yangying, you chose this time to bring me here because you don't want him to die, right? Sai Qing communicated. Chapter 1008. Li Qingshan, I admit you're much stronger than regular trash, so I'd advise you not to make a mistake. Don't ruin your great future for mere worldly possessions. Even when Sai Qing stood before Li Qingshan, he still looked down on him and ordered him around. My future can't be ruined just because someone wants to, even if it's some prince or crown prince. Li Qingshan fiddled around with the Azura field, completely ignoring Sai Qing's threat. Unraging master, the Azura field doesn't just belong to me. It belongs to the imperial family too, so it must be taken back. Does the Chan monastery of Devarenjie really want to become enemies with Great Xia over this kid? Sai Qing held back his urge to kill Li Qingshan and said to the unraging monk, you're only a crown prince. You still can't represent Great Xia. The Azura field is soaked in the blood of the cultivators of our green province. I don't think it'll be that easy if you want to take it back so easily, the unraging monk retorted firmly. At the end of the day, you just want some benefits. All right, state your conditions, Sai Qing said in disdain. He had noticed the dense, blood-red light in the Azura field. Clearly, it was much more powerful than when he had just refined it, so he did not mind paying a little price. He would naturally get his revenge in the future. There are no conditions at all. You can't take the Azura field away. Li Qingshan rejected him flatly. Li Qingshan, why don't you take a look at your identity first? Is there any place for you to speak here? Sai Qing was angered. Having been provoked by a White Hawk commander time and time again, his patience had reached the limit too. I can tell you're not willing to just let the matter go. Why don't we have another bet? The Azura field will belong to whoever wins, Li Qingshan said. What bet? Sai Qing asked. Don't you like duels? Then let's have another one. You want your master to fight me? What a good disciple. Sai Ching sneered. Yu Wuyang frowned heavily. He felt great contempt towards Li Qingshan. Was he acting willfully just because he was using his connections to intimidate others? However, the unraging monk did not think so. He was well aware of Li Qingshan's temperament. He was so independent that he was proud and aloof. Even if Li Qingshan was under his protection, Li Qingshan would not accept it, let alone fight on his behalf. No, I want to duel with you. Li Qingshan's eyes shone brightly. He looked straight at Sai Ching. As soon as he said that, everyone except Jiyu Yangying was stunned, wondering if they had heard wrongly. Not only was Sai Ching at the third stage of the heavenly tribulation, he had also cultivated the Black Emperor Dragon Scripture, one of the 3 graves and 5 scriptures of the royal family. His strength far surpassed that of ordinary nascent soul cultivators. Qingshan. Don't be rash. The unraging monk smiled bitterly inside. Now this is Li Qingshan's temperament. Oh, my damned disciple. You might as well have let your master take action. Yu Wuyang's expression changed from disdain to surprise. In the end, he had to admit that he really couldn't see through Li Qingshan. Master. I know what I'm doing. I'm known as the King of Savages in the southern border, Li Qingshan said with a smile. King of Savages, could it be that he? No, this is impossible. Sai Ching's mind raced, and he immediately rejected this inconceivable thought. As a prince, he had the best talent, the best resources, and the strongest cultivation technique, but he had still spent over 300 years to reach this level. It took more than 100 years to go from the second heavenly tribulation to the third. Given Li Qingshan's background, it was already a miracle that he could become the White Eagle commander at such a young age. He had only undergone the second heavenly tribulation in 20 to 30 years, so it was impossible for him to undergo the third heavenly tribulation. The so-called King of Savages is definitely just an empty title. What King of Savages? Savages are more like savages. Aren't you afraid of being mocked in such a desolate place? It was not Sai Ching's fault for thinking like that. Aside from Jiyu Yangying, everyone present was the same. No one would guess that Li Qingshan had already gone through 3 heavenly tribulations. This had nothing to do with wisdom, but common sense. What, are you scared? Your Highness. This bastard still dares to bluff. That was what Sai Ching believed. He felt humiliated by his hesitation just now, so he said proudly, dueling you is an insult to me, but for the sake of the Chan Monastery of Deva Nga, I'll give you this opportunity. Li Qingshan smiled inside. You've finally taken the bait, or in other words, he crooked his finger, and the fish leapt ashore. Since you want my Azura field, you should offer something of equal value as a wager. Otherwise, the duel won't take place. There's no need to go through so much trouble. I also have a condition. Cold light flashed through Sai Ching's eyes. What condition? Li Qingshan asked. I want to engage in a battle to the death with you. No one is allowed to interfere before life and death is determined. Sai Ching's killing intent surged. He no longer hid it. A Qing, that's not very appropriate. Jiyu Yangying tried to persuade him. Yangying, this has nothing to do with you. Sai Ching said straightforwardly. He was certain that Jiyu Yangying was siding with Li Qingshan. Jiyu Yangying shook her head. What was the point? Li Qingshan lowered his head and feigned hesitation to hide the joy in his heart. To think that there would be something so good. Originally, he had considered Sai Ching's identity, and killing him would definitely lead to endless trouble. His plans in the Green Province would all be disrupted, so he had been considering whether to kill him or not. He never thought he would actually propose such a delightful condition. What, are you afraid now? Sai Ching became more and more certain that Li Qingshan was just putting on an act just now. I still vaguely remember that a duel can only be fought with your own strength. Li Qingshan asked in a probing manner, as if he wanted to shrink back. He had already made up his mind to kill. He thought, as the Crown Prince, this bastard must have quite a lot of life-saving items on him. If it's a regular battle, I really might not be able to kill him. That's right. No external items are allowed in the duel. The Sumeru ring will be handed to the arbitrator for safekeeping, and the victor will obtain everything. How about it? This wager is much greater than the Azura field. Sai Ching was afraid that Li Qingshan would go back on his word, so he added another bait. All right. Li Qingshan seemed to have made up his mind. He thought, Sai Ching, oh Sai Ching, you can't blame me if you want to die. When Li Qingshan agreed, Sai Ching suddenly felt uneasy, as if he had made a wrong judgment. However, he immediately suppressed this uneasiness. There was no reason for him to lose. Great General King, please lend me your Azura field. Please hand over your Sumeru rings and all your belongings. Yu Wuyang took out an Azura field with a flip of his hand. The decorations were indeed different from Li Qingshan's Azura field, and it was even denser. Yangying, you'll be our arbitrator, Sai Ching said to Jiyu Yangying. Both parties have to agree. Yu Wuyang lowered his eyes. As the owner of the Azura field, he would usually be the arbitrator. Sai Ching clearly did not trust him. Jiyu Yangying nodded slightly and said to Li Qingshan, may I? Yes. The two Sumeru rings landed in Jiyu Yangying's hand. She clenched her fists. Although it's a battle to the death, I'd advise the two of you to be lenient wherever possible. Sai Ching thought Jiyu Yangying was talking to him. He sneered slightly, but he did not comment. I've always been one to be lenient wherever possible. Li Qingshan smiled. He would never be lenient wherever possible. With that, he stepped into the Azura field first. The familiar blood-red swirl permeated with a heavy stench of blood. Everything was enveloped in a layer of red light. The terrain was relatively simple, with undulating mountain ranges and lone peaks standing tall. Surrounded by the mountains, there was a large open space. Li Qingshan and Sai Ching appeared in the empty space, facing off against each other. Soon afterwards, the unraging monk and the others appeared on the tallest mountain, overlooking the battlefield below. Yu Wuyang, who are they? With a flash of red light, a man with disheveled hair appeared on the mountain, directly calling Yu Wuyang by name. The presence he gave off was that of an Azura king. A living one and a dead one, Yu Wuyang said. A battle to the death. Interesting. The Azura king said. Who do you think will win? Yu Wuyang asked. There's actually a battle you can't predict. The Azura king was rather surprised. He glanced down. If I were to bet, I'd bet on the kid on the right. Yu Wuyang was slightly surprised. The one on the right was Li Qingshan. He said sternly, he hasn't undergone the third heavenly tribulation yet. What? Did I make a mistake? The Azura king knew nothing about Li Qingshan. He made a judgment based on his instincts as a warrior. He stared at Li Qingshan deeply. His presence is completely concealed, so how do you know he hasn't undergone the third heavenly tribulation? Why do I feel like he's much more difficult to deal with than the kid on the left? Maybe you made a mistake. Yu Wuyang wanted to deny it. However, he struggled to question the Azura king's instincts regarding this battle. Did I really make a mistake? Li Qingshan, feel free to use whatever you've got. I'd like to see where you get the confidence to challenge me. I heard you practice the secret cultivation method of the Chan Monastery of Deva Nga, the demon suppression statuary. Let me see what's so impressive about it. As you wish. Li Qingshan released his suppression over the demon heart. Immediately, demon chi surged into the air, surging out in all directions like the tide. Although he still lacked the time to polish the quality, from the perspective of quantity, the effects were quite startling. Sai Ching was stunned. He was in disbelief. Demon King, Yu Wuyang's eyes narrowed. Within the surging demon chi, Li Qingshan's dark red eyes were like cold stars. Strange demonic tattoos appeared on his body. He suddenly understood. To be able to calmly kill the flying locust demon commander in the midst of a locust plague, it was not something that a Jindan adept could do. He definitely did not rely on a mere Shura field. However, how could this be possible? How old was he? The unraging monk was taken aback before bursting into laughter. This disciple of his always surprised him. The third heavenly tribulation. He's already undergone the third heavenly tribulation. Yu Bing murmured. He recalled how he had even said he wanted to compete with Li Qingshan back in the Chain Mountains. Now that he thought about it, it was such a joke. Li Qingshan, oh Li Qingshan. Looks like I've still underestimated you. Han Anjuan glanced at Han Qiongji again. Seeing how relieved she was, he could not help but sigh inside. Do you really think you can defeat me like this? Sai Qing recovered from his shock. He roared and turned into a black dragon, lunging towards Li Qingshan. All right, there's no point in guessing anymore. The outcome has already been determined, said the Azura King. The difference in strength between them isn't that great, said Yu Wuyang. As a matter of fact, Sai Qing was slightly stronger. You still don't understand. I think you've been a great general for too long. You've even forgotten the most basic things. Don't beasts always do their best to conceal themselves when they hunt? The kid on the right could have just continued to conceal his strength and launched a sudden attack at a critical moment. Yu Wuyang was speechless. Was he no longer concealing himself because he had already achieved his objective? He was absolutely confident that he could kill Sai Qing here. Chapter 1009. The blood-red swirl began to spin. The black dragon's roar rang through the entire Azura field as it lunged towards Li Qingshan, brandishing its claws and fangs. Apart from Yu Wuyang, the unraging monk, and the Azura King, everyone else only saw a slithering streak of black light rush towards Li Qingshan. Heh! Li Qingshan let out a gentle laugh. Demon Qi erupted like smoke, immediately swallowing his figure. Bang! The black dragon collided headfirst into the pillar of smoke. Within the surging demon Qi, a huge, metallic hand reached out and pressed down on the dragon's head. The black dragon struggled, but it was unable to take another step forward. It roared inside, "This is impossible. I've practiced the Black Emperor Dragon's cannon arduously. After transforming into a black dragon, my body has even surpassed Demon King's in toughness. How can I be stopped like this?" A colossal figure flickered in and out of the demon Qi. Suddenly, it sucked in a deep breath, and the demon Qi surged back. Only then did an armored giant over 300 meters tall appear, like a mountain. Its eyes flickered with dark, demonic light. Suddenly, it lit up, and the hand that pressed down on the black dragon suddenly tightened and pulled backwards. The black dragon's body that was close to 600 meters in length was pushed forwards against its will. Another huge hand grabbed the dragon firmly, and it was suddenly swung around, slamming into the ground heavily. Boom! Rocks were sent flying, and the ground cracked. The black dragon widened its eyes as its entire body ached. The two huge hands pulled hard, and its colossal body was thrown into the air again. Boom! Like a child swinging a dead snake, Li Qingshan grabbed the black dragon and swung it back and forth. Laughter rang out from the heavy armor. The spectators were all dumbfounded. This no longer seemed like a tense battle to the death. It was clearly a one-sided game. I've misjudged him too. How can his strength be so great? The Azura King sighed in amazement. The black dragon's body even surpassed his. Even Azura Kings who pursued strength could not stop his full-powered lunge with a single hand. Strength was not the only standard for assessing battle prowess. However, once the difference in strength had reached such a level, and it was also close combat, the outcome of the battle was basically set in stone. Yu Wuyang pursed his lips. I really want to fight him. The demon suppression statuary really is the secret technique of the Chan Monastery of Devarenjie after all. It's actually even better than the Black Emperor Dragon's cannon. Yu Wuyang felt that he had to re-evaluate this monk. If the disciple had such strength, wouldn't the master be even stronger? The unraging monk stared at the battlefield attentively. He was taken aback before smiling. You're too kind, fellow. This child probably came across some fortuitous encounter in the Mist Province. His brows were slightly furrowed because Li Qingshan's performance was really not normal. Although the demon suppression statuary condensed a demon heart, it was fundamentally different from demon folk. However, right now, Li Qingshan seemed no different from a demon king. His completely uncontrollable ruthlessness was even more powerful and terrifying than regular demon kings. The demon suppression statuary was in his hands. His appearance had completely changed. Could it be that he was possessed by the devil? The unraging monk dismissed this thought soon afterwards. Li Qingshan behaved extremely normally. He did not seem like he had lost control of his emotions or changed drastically at all. Moreover, qi deviation was a terrifying, negative state. He had never heard of anyone becoming even stronger after qi deviation. Just what did he encounter in the Mist Province? Li. Azure. Shan. The black dragon was tossed into the air once again. It let out a furious roar. It had never been so humiliated before. It opened its mouth and spat out surging black water. Like a black river, it directly rushed towards Li Qingshan's face. "What are you doing?" Li Qingshan asked with a smile. With a rip, a thick layer of his visor was eaten away, but there was still a thick layer of armor behind it. His demonified form was basically completely composed of armor. It did not have any other advantages other than its freakishly tough defense. The black dragon struggled hard, and Li Qingshan's hands slipped. He smiled viciously, purposefully not using his full strength. With the violent sound of metal grinding against each other, countless scales flew into the air and fell off. The agony almost drove the black dragon mad. It slithered around Li Qingshan's body. 4 dragon claws gripped his vital points firmly, and its mouth bit down viciously on Li Qingshan's neck. The claws and teeth stabbed deeply, and there was the sound of metal twisting. The demonic armor deformed violently. The black dragon's strangulation. The demon qi around Li Qingshan vanished, and the light in his demon heart dimmed. A thin, black line wrapped around it, which happened to be a miniature black dragon. It had locked down his demon heart firmly, preventing him from using his cultivation. This was not just a strangulation of the body. It was also a direct suppression of the source of his power. "I want you dead," the black dragon growled, surging with killing intent. "This kid is far too careless, or in other words, he has no battle intent at all. Now that he's struck by this move, victory will be difficult to say." The Azura king shook his head, but to his confusion, he still could not sense much battle intent even now. "I didn't think the demon suppression statuary I practice would end up being suppressed by someone today. But it's a pity that you're still too weak. Someone I once viewed as a great enemy, even if your cultivation speed is not slow, has already become so weak. Let alone powerful demon kings like the martial chief king and the kings of yin and yang, even that bone-eating shaman king who turned into a monk halfway through is stronger than you. A battle like this is far too tedious," Li Qingshan thought. He did not feel his blood boil at all. Although it was said that even a lion would use its full strength to hunt a rabbit, that was because if it did not use its full strength, the rabbit would run away. A rabbit that crawled on a lion and bit furiously would only embarrass the lion. However, in the eyes of outsiders, Li Qingshan had indeed fallen into a terrifying, hopeless situation. The huge demonic armor constantly twisted and shrank, constantly being eaten away by the black water. The claws and teeth constantly sank in. No matter how thick the demonic armor was, it would not be able to protect him very soon. "Sai Qing, I'm going to blow up my demon heart and take you down with me," Li Qingshan called out. Sai Qing's heart tightened. This move of his was a powerful killing move, but it possessed a fatal flaw. He could seal up the enemy's cultivation, but he could not prevent the enemy from blowing up themselves. Once the enemy decided to blow themselves up, it was very easy for him to be dragged down with him in this state. He was not afraid of death, but this kind of death was far too aggrieving. TSK, I never thought that a dignified crown prince like you would actually die together with someone like me. Why don't you admit defeat, and I'll let you live?" Li Qingshan said with a smile. "Don't even think about it." Sai Qing was enraged. He had clearly been forced into a hopeless situation, yet he still dared to threaten him. "Then I'll take you down with me," Li Qingshan said. "Come." Sai Qing roared, using all his strength to strangle Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan fell silent for a moment. Sai Qing's heart was in his throat, and he was prepared to dodge and flee at any moment. "I'm just joking. Take me down with you. Dream on." Li Qingshan laughed. However, the joke ended here. He made two decisions. First, he would no longer use the absolute strength of the ox demon transformation to crush his opponent. He would also not use any of the other transformations. He would only use the demon suppression statuary to fight his opponent. He would use this opportunity to temper this brand new power, and also to avoid arousing too much suspicion from the spectators. Chapter 10:10. Li Qingshan closed his eyes and allowed his mind to return to the demonic heart. The aura has changed. The Azura king, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly stood up and looked at the battlefield with bright eyes. His lips curled into a sinister smile. Finally, it's getting interesting. I, Sai Qing, am a member of the royal family of the Xia dynasty, the son of destiny. You're just a lowly commoner who got to where you are today because of luck. How dare you compete with me? Today is the day you die. The black dragon roared and tightened its body, turning the armor into scrap metal. I don't remember you being this stupid before. Did you get struck by lightning during the tribulation? Li Qingshan suddenly opened his eyes. His killing intent surged and his evil aura soared into the sky. The blood-red vortex spun faster and the demonic heart shone with demonic light, attacking the entangling black dragon. The power of the demonic heart mostly came from the demonic nature. In this almost playful state, he didn't unleash his true strength. What a brave and fierce battle intent! Yu Wuyang praised. As a warrior, he obviously admired true warriors. He felt like he was seeing Li Qingshan in a new light. He turned around and asked Han Anjuan, "Why didn't you accept him as a disciple of the school of the military in the first place?" Han Anjuan couldn't answer. Everything was just a coincidence. But it's not a waste to have such a son-in-law, Yu Wuyang said. Han Anjuan smiled bitterly. He didn't want to have such a son-in-law, but it was his daughter who insisted on doing things her own way. With Li Qingshan's seriousness, Sai Qing immediately felt that his killing intent was shaken. He was shocked and angry. This is impossible. This is the killing intent of the Black Emperor Dragon scripture. Even if my strength is not as good, I can still win against someone stronger. How did I break free? There's no why. It's just that you're weaker. Whether it's your strength or your will, going through 3 heavenly tribulations and becoming the crown prince of the Xia dynasty is just an illusion. You're even weaker than when I first met you. Sai Qing. Li Qingshan seemed to have heard Sai Qing's thoughts and said with a smile, "Shut up. At least at that time, you still knew fear, and you still knew how to plan. Now that you've become some bullshit crown prince, do you really think that you're already standing at the top of the food chain? Do you think that you can look down on everyone and do whatever you want?" Li Qingshan's words were sharp. The murderous aura intensified. In a daze, Sai Qing had an illusion that it was not him who had forced Li Qingshan into a desperate situation, but Li Qingshan who had seized his vital point. It had been less than a year since he became the crown prince, but the sudden change in his status gave him unprecedented confidence. When he heard that the Azura field had appeared in Azure province, he was extremely excited. He had immediately rushed over, as if he was taking something out of his pocket. However, the development of everything had greatly exceeded his initial expectations. What exactly had gone wrong? For the world of the 9 prefectures, overcoming the 3rd heavenly tribulation could be considered as reaching the peak of the mountain, and they could heave a sigh of relief. He enjoyed the pleasure of looking down on all the other mountains. He himself had cultivated a top-notch cultivation technique and possessed an extremely high position of power. He even had the opportunity to aspire to the throne of the great Xia dynasty. However, when he looked back, the small fry that he had once disdained had already caught up with his footsteps. In fact, he was even faster than him. If all my enemies are people like you, then revenge would be too boring, regretless demon heart. Li Qingshan bellowed, and the demon heart shone brightly, instantly breaking through the shackles. Demonic chi surged out. Break. Dozens of demon suppression towers of various sizes pierced out from various parts of the demonic armor like sharp spearheads. With a pained dragon roar, the black dragon's blood splattered, and its killing momentum slowed down. However, it still refused to let go of its claws. He thought to himself, As long as I hold on a little longer and tear apart this damned armor, I'll be able to kill him. Open. Li Qingshan's body shook, and demonic chi burst out, sending the black dragon flying. Lock. Li Qingshan raised his hand, and the demon suppression chains shot out, wrapping around the black dragon's tail. The demon suppression chains stretched taut, and the black dragon flew forward, frantically trying to break free. He finally felt the fear that he had not felt in a long time. Suppress. Li Qingshan bellowed, and a large black shadow descended from the sky. A mountainous demon suppression tower descended from the sky, pressing down on the black dragon. The black dragon turned around and bit off the demon suppression chains. Its body suddenly shrank, and it dodged the suppression of the demon suppression tower, fleeing towards the mountains outside the battlefield. This scene exceeded everyone's expectations. Sai Ching had actually been forced to flee. The Black Emperor Dragon mantra was powerful, but compared to the demon suppression statuary, it did not have much of an advantage. And even if Li Qingshan did not use the 9 transformations of demons and gods, with his powerful demonic nature as his foundation, his battle prowess was above that of the average demon king. Fellow Daoistyu, what should I say? Li Qingshan was not in a hurry to give chase. Or rather, if he did not use his mystical abilities, he would not be able to catch up. The battle is not over yet. I have already sealed the Azura field. There is only one person who can walk out of it. Yu Wuyang said solemnly. Although he did not want a crown prince to die in his Azura field, a duel had its rules. If one had the determination to kill, they should also be prepared to be killed. What if he keeps running away? Li Qingshan said. Every 2 hours, I will reduce the area where you can move. This is also one of the rules of the duel, Yu Wuyang said. This is retribution. I'm not happy. Li Qingshan laughed loudly. He remembered that many years ago, Sai Ching had used this very rule to force many cultivators into a desperate situation. In that case, I will wait for him here for a while. He dispersed the demonic heavy armor, sat down cross-legged, and looked at his demon heart. After a small battle that was not too intense, although he had used up a lot of demon heart, he had gotten rid of a lot of impurities. Remorseless demon heart. Damned disciple, how did you practice the demon suppression statuary? The unraging monk asked loudly. I obviously comprehended it from the demon suppression statue. Is there something wrong with that? Li Qingshan purposefully acted like he knew nothing. It's not just wrong. It was basically wrong from the very beginning. It was a huge mistake. What's the difference between you and demon folk like this? The unraging monk said in bitter resentment. There's a difference. Not only did I not do anything bad, but I even fended off the plague of locusts and saved over 1 million people. What difference do you think there is? Master, you're far too narrow-minded. Perhaps my way of practicing might be correct and you're wrong. The unraging monk hesitated slightly too. Did a path like that really exist in the demon suppression statuary? Then he asked, when did you undergo the 3rd heavenly tribulation? It wasn't that long, said Li Qingshan. So much for keeping it to yourself. I think you're clearly guilty. I have a very clear conscience, so what's there to be guilty about? Li Qingshan called out at the sky, Sai Ching, stop wasting time. Come out and accept your death. His voice boomed through the mountains. In a mountain stream, the black dragon had shrunk to the thickness of a pinky, like a tiny snake hiding in a crack in a rock. He concealed all of his aura and hid himself. Chapter 10-11. Time passed bit by bit. Li Qingshan simply focused on his cultivation and continued to refine his demonic heart, while Yu Wuyang kept shrinking the scope of the entire battlefield. After an unknown period of time, a wisp of dark clouds rose from the stream and spread across the mountains. Thunder rumbled in the clouds, and the silhouette of a dragon could be vaguely seen. Finally, a smile appeared on Li Qingshan's face as he said loudly, "Don't dawdle. Come and finish this." In the blink of an eye, the dark clouds covered the sky and shrouded Li Qingshan's head. Black rain poured down, stirring up the protective demonic energy around him and causing white mist to rise. At this moment, another 2 hours passed. Yu Wuyang further reduced the scope of the battlefield. The only area that the two could move around was this large open space surrounded by mountains and some surrounding mountains, all of which were shrouded by the dark clouds. Li Qingshan, it's time for you to die. The dragon's silhouette swam, and Sai Qing's voice came from the dark clouds, accompanied by the rumbling of thunder, as if it was an order from the heavens. This move was called Dark Cloud's Cover, and it was originally a move used in the Black Emperor Dragon mantra to attack cities and break mountains. It was extremely destructive, but it was not suitable to be used in fights of magical powers. Otherwise, the enemy would be able to escape from the dark clouds in a flash. However, Sai Qing had timed it perfectly and calculated the terrain, making it impossible for Li Qingshan to escape. Li Qingshan could only face it head-on. You prepared for so long just to bathe me? Li Qingshan stood in the battlefield and let out a long roar, breaking the curtain of rain and tearing the clouds apart. He caught a glimpse of the black dragon's tail, and the chains of demon suppression whizzed through the air. The black dragon swung its tail, avoiding the entanglement of the chains of demon suppression, and hid in the dark clouds again. The dragon's mouth kept breathing out mist, making the dark clouds thicker and thicker. Low above the battlefield, the heavy rain poured down, and soon, the black water had covered Li Qingshan's feet. As if it had a life of its own, the black water surged towards him. Li Qingshan's body trembled. The black water surged into thousands of water droplets, flying in all directions. Demon eyes. The billowing demonic aura transformed into a giant battle armor that was 100 feet tall. The sharp horns on its head could almost touch the clouds. However, compared to the clumsy and heavy just now, it seemed to be slimmer. A demonic eye formed between the demonic armor's brows. A streak of demonic light shot into the clouds, searching for the black dragon. Suddenly, he saw the shadow of a dragon flash by, and he punched it. A large hole was torn open in the dark clouds, but the black dragon was nowhere to be seen. Sai Qing remained hidden until the dark clouds had accumulated to the limit. The dark thunder rumbling in the clouds could no longer be suppressed. Suddenly, a dragon roar sounded. Die! With a flash of light, a bolt of lightning shot out, carrying with it the flames of vengeance. It bombarded Li Qingshan's head, and lightning flickered, turning into a net of electricity that weaved around his body. It disappeared in a flash. Li Qingshan's body turned numb. Dazzling lightning flashed before his eyes, and booms rang out in his ears. A series of lightning bolts struck down. The unraging monk frowned slightly. The 3 graves and 5 classics of the imperial family truly were extraordinary. It could even blast through protective formations with such power, and lightning was rather effective against demon chi. If he were a regular demon king, he would have died from being struck by lightning. Han Qiongji's eyes were filled with worry. However, she did her best to maintain her composure. Yu Bing stared straight at them, unable to take his eyes off of them. Yu Wuyang, on the other hand, sighed. The new had replaced the old. After all, they had both undergone the 3rd heavenly tribulation recently, but if they fought, he actually did not have absolute confidence in emerging victorious even though he was a great general. He used the opportunity to scold his son, Yu Bing. Are you still going to treat yourself as a genius and treat your cultivation lightly in the future? I won't. Yu Bing said obediently. He thought, since when have I treated my cultivation lightly? Am I not a genius with my current cultivation at such a young age? The two of them are just too monstrous, especially that Li Qingshan. I heard from Qiongji that he's only a few decades old. Is he the reincarnation of a celestial? The demon suppression tower on Li Qingshan's helmet pointed diagonally at the sky, basically becoming a lightning rod. The scorching lightning tore through the demonic armor, and the black water beneath his feet constantly surged up, eroding the demonic armor madly. Dragon cries rang out, filled with the delight of revenge. Sai Qing powered the white lightning and black water, wanting to reduce Li Qingshan to smithereens. Only then would his hatred be appeased. Li Qingshan did not move at all, as if he had completely lost the ability to resist. He allowed the lightning to strike him as his lips curled into a smile. The reason why his demonic form was so stable was because he had not experienced the tempering of tribulation lightning, and the demonic power he had devoured from the various demon kings was not completely compatible. He had originally needed a lot of time to temper himself, but he did not expect Sai Ching to take the initiative to help him, making up for this lesson. What else was there to say? He just had to stand there and take the lightning strikes. As for whether he would be struck to death, that was no joke. Even if he did not use the 9 transformations of the demon and god, his powerful physique was still here. Even if he took off his demonic armor, being struck by Sai Ching for 100 years was nothing. Li Qingshan silently circulated the demon suppression statuary, and the mottled impurities in his demonic heart slowly faded under the tempering of the lightning. The demonic nature surged, but it was no longer the fighting spirit of the tiger demon, but the persistence of the ox demon, silently enduring the lightning strikes. His enormous body continued to shrink, and soon, he was less than 50 jong in size. The black water quickly drowned him, forming a large black lake that submerged Li Qingshan's waist. The waves surged and slapped his body, but he was like a black reef, standing there without moving. A moment later, the black water had submerged his chest. Qingshan, hold on a little longer, the unraging monk thought. The lightning strikes had already begun to weaken. Without pills and spiritual stones, even Sai Ching could not maintain an attack of this intensity for too long. Hold on a little longer. Sai Ching gritted his teeth and gave it his all. Victory was right before his eyes. Li Qingshan had already reached his limit. He only needed to hold on for a little longer, and he would succeed. He would wash away his humiliation and reclaim the Azura field that belonged to him. However, Li Qingshan was thinking the same thing. Sai Ching, hold on a little longer. The effects of the lightning refinement were quite impressive. This short period of time had saved him half a year at the very least. Li Qingshan's figure became smaller and smaller. A while later, a huge wave slammed down, completely swallowing Li Qingshan's figure. The rumbling thunder settled down, and the dark clouds began to disperse. The black dragon circled around the surface of the water a few times as he wondered, is he dead? Qingshan. Han Qiongji took a step forward, her face filled with concern. The Azura king glanced at her. What are you in such a hurry for, little girl? Your man has won. He's even stronger than I expected. His won? Han Qiongji asked. Hualala. A chain of demon suppression burst out of the water, wrapping around the black dragon's neck and pulling it down violently. The black dragon fell heavily into the water, and the lake churned violently. The dragon's tail would slap the surface of the water from time to time, kicking up huge waves. However, the dragon's head remained at the bottom the entire time. With a boom, the black dragon burst out of the water. As the water splashed into the air, Li Qingshan stood high above the dragon's head. His figure had returned to normal, and his demonic armor had fallen off. Layers of demonic glyphs crisscrossed his robust body. He gripped the chain of demon suppression in his hand like a rein, controlling the violent black dragon beneath him. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.